Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. Welcome to the show. Been quite a while, a few weeks since we spoke. Appreciate you for coming back after my little hiatus. Absolutely much needed break. Rest assured that anytime there's an episode being skipped, it's not because I'm being lazy or being, irresponsible or anything like that. It's really because I need a break. So a couple weeks off did me good. Basically what I did for my last few weeks was I binge watched Yellowstone. So I've been hanging out with Kevin Costner in Montana. If you have not seen the show, I don't know. I think I watch it on Peacock. I don't know what channel. Maybe it's Paramount or something. I don't know. I can't keep track of them. What a phenomenal show. It's literally like The Sopranos, but with cowboys. And Kevin Costner. I mean, what more can you want with him? But very good show. I think that it was worth mentioning because I went through 4 seasons in probably 2 months. Not even 2 months. Month and a half maybe. Pretty damn good. But yeah, other than that, I've just been hanging out, chilling with the dogs, trying different beers, especially ones that are having to do with my guest this week. But before we get to that, Turner Dairy Farms, proud sponsors of the I'll Call You Right Back podcast. Appreciate having them. They are steady pumping out Turner's Premium Iced Tea. The heat has been unbearable. The other day, I think we got up to, I think my car said 89. That's the hottest it's been thus far. And whenever it gets above 85, that's Turner's weather. I go down to the local bodega. I grab myself an ice cold Diet Turner's and I swig that thing back and I let the nostalgia pump through my veins. But the reason that everyone is here this week, very special guest, long awaited. This week, I sit down with the one and only Aadam Soorma. Aadam is a jack of all trades. He is, a man of the people, and he is someone that, I've been kind of admiring from afar. So, as we know, the last episode that I had was Andy from Hitchhiker, all right? So, me and him sat down and we talked about beer. That was my first initiation into craft beer, into the world of Pittsburgh's craft beer scene, which is a great world in itself. But whenever people think of craft beer, if they were going to make a Mount Rushmore of it, I feel like Aadam Soorma's face would be on there. He's involved in all these events. He is the marketing and guest experience person over at Trace Brewing in Bloomfield. They're one of the newer breweries. They've been around for, a year and some change. And, I don't know. I feel kind of silly whenever I try to talk about beer and what's good and what's not because I'm a novice, but they got some pretty damn good beer. Aadam came into the studio, brought me over some beer to try. We crack a few open on the episode and we try them out. I believe we try Woods, Saison, and then we try Hop Royalty, which is an IPA, and then he left me another Saison, but I'm enjoying the beer world. I knocked it for a while. Definitely was not someone that frequented that world much, but I've been really enjoying it. I have a taste, enjoy basically, trying all these things, and it's fun to pick people's brains. Aadam is an interesting viewpoint in this craft brewery scene because, I had Andy on. Andy is a master brewer at Hitchhiker Brewing. We talked about brewing beer, what some of the steps are, what some of it entails, but me and Aadam, we kind of get into kind of the weeds of it a little bit. We talk about branding, we talk about how a brewery starts to form, we talk about, besides all the beer, Aadam is definitely a beer guy. I would say that, his career is beer right now, but before this, he had a pretty damn interesting life. He went to University of Ohio on a track scholarship, went to CMU, and then, he's just just been traveling the world basically. And, he kind of has some accolades. He worked for a local place called Very Local, which did a podcast. He did one called The Slaw. And, he's just a journalist. He everything about him seems to be, he just enjoys journalism. And like, we get into that. We get into, talking about what he wanted for his life, because, as I mentioned before, a lot of people that I speak to, they're not born into this world saying, I want to work for a beer company. That's just not something that's there. So I kind of wanted to hear, how Adam's life navigated and directed and, set him on the trajectory of working in the food and beverage industry, specifically beer. And it's pretty interesting to hear about. I'm fascinated. I'm someone who, I'm an easy mark. If I like something, I dive into it head first. I like beer now, so I'm going to just get crazy with it. And it's almost like, it's a blessing and a curse. The other day, I made the mistake of walking into a comic book shop down the road from me, and immediately was just suckered in. I started buying some comic books. Now I'm reading some comic books, and I'm just like, Jesus, I just get into too much shit, to be honest. But beer, I've been drinking beer like I've been collecting magic cards. My numbers are getting up there. And like I said, Adam works for Trace. I've had Trace a few times, so I probably had 4 or 5 of them. But he's involved with like the half-ass beer share that I talked about with Andy. He's involved with, just everything that's kind of going on in this scene. And you'll definitely hear about all the great things that they do at Trace. Trace is a little bit different. Trace is not really just a brewery. It's just it's a place that's, it's more welcoming on different levels, I would say. They focus a lot on being very active in the community, being very active and outspoken on, public issues, being a safe space for people. And it's pretty awesome to hear about. So I'll quit talking your ear off. Without further ado, what number are we on, actually? I don't even know what number we're on. That's what happens whenever you take off 3 weeks. I'm on episode 206. So, without further ado, episode 206 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Aadam Soorma at Trace Brewing.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast.
That's cool.
That's the best. Are you, have you always had animals?
Man, this is first time ever. Yeah.
This is the first time ever? And you adopted a senior dog?
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm 35 and I've never had a pet ever. I mean, college, grad school, moving to Pittsburgh, like, I'm trying to think. I've had roommates that have had pets. That is like awesome, because then you have like a temporary pet.
Yeah.
But like as far as my own, just now, with her.
That's the best. That's it's interesting because like, the whole like world of like rescuing a dog is so wild, because you're just like, you never know what you're getting, and you're just hoping for the best. And that dog's awesome though. Godot, you said?
Yeah, so it's like a Godot.
Did she come with a name?
Yeah, she came with a name, but like didn't love it. It was Gidget.
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 Yeah.
And I was like, that's like just too much like widget or like
yeah,
weird. So I went with Godot because I speak French, and Godot is like a French name.
Wow.
And, I just was like, I've always, I don't know, my moped is named Pierre. So then I have like Pierre, my moped, and then Godot, the dog.
That's the best. Godot's a Fetty Wap fan, or are you a Fetty Wap fan?
I think it's hilarious, just like dropping those tweets. But hey, bud, stay down here. She just wandered away. That's all right. But
could she climb upstairs?
Yeah, they're probably small, so she's fine.
I think I shut that door up there. Should be good regardless.
Yeah, I think she's just exploring. But yeah, I like the Fetty Wap thing because it just rhymes with her name.
Yeah, I know, and it's very fitting.
I do that like probably once a week or once every couple of weeks.
I like it. I like the ongoing theme. So I usually tell people, kind of I kind of think about how I came across people. I don't really remember how I came across you at all. I think maybe seeing people share your stuff through Very Local, and like the podcast that you did before with them. And then I started to see you, as I started to like kind of research this craft brewery scene, I started to see you're a very well-known face of the craft brewery scene around here. And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I heard about I'll Call You Right Back through Cody, like Cody Baker. And I think I've seen others just like sharing some of your stuff, whether it's like a friend of theirs or on it, or a guest that I recognize, like Andy. Andy's like a good friend from Hitchhiker. And I just started digging into it more, and I was like, that's sweet. I didn't know you had a studio down here. I wasn't sure if it was a day job or a side hustle, because I saw you're sponsored by Turner, which is dope, because you shot them out in the episode. Yeah. I think that's really cool.
Appreciate that. Yeah, Turner's is a nice, very proud sponsor of the podcast. We're proud to have them here. But yeah, I started the podcast like 4 years ago and kind of just wanted to start to learn about other people in the city that are doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird to think about like, I guess like, I feel like you're kind of an extrovert. So you talking to people is probably something, thank you very much, is probably something that's not like very, just out of the ordinary. You seem like a personable person, but like if I wanted to interview someone who was a funeral director, like the brothmonger, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I interviewed her before she became the brothmonger because I wanted to learn about funeral directors. So if I like came across someone like that and I was like, oh, I know that you're a funeral director because I follow you on Instagram, it would be kind of weird to like just kind of like berate her with questions. So I kind of created my own environment to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. So really it's pretty free form conversational. Like I've only listened to a little bit of the actual podcast, just like clips and snippets from friends.
Yeah.
The Andy episode for sure. I think there was one other one. There was one other one that I went fully all the way through. I was like getting ready in the morning. I just have a Sonos by my shower, and I listened to a full episode. It was definitely one of the more recent ones.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who. Did you have Buzzy on, or did you have?
No, I mean, I can't even remember half of all of them, but it's hard to like. I don't know. I feel like it's just like I try to keep it as different as I can, as far as like, talking to people with different jobs, talking to people with like different, just in different worlds, because, I'm just kind of creating a spider web, and, it's all about who you know. So it's like, I know one person and they put me in contact with another person. So it's like, they just keep, things keep naturally like popping up for people to talk to. So it's kind of like an awesome, Pittsburgh is such a unique area because we got like all this, all these people that are just doing so many things that like no one really knows about. So I wanted it to be, I never been able to offer anything tangible as far as like art. I never was good at painting or like, rapping or anything like that. So I wanted to like kind of develop something that I could, inject into the city in my own way. Mm-hmm. And, luckily I'm all right at talking, I guess. So here we are with this.
And you're consistent.
I'm consistent.
That is like, they say something like X number of podcasts die before 10 episodes, and you're like north of 200, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to credit Buzzy from that. Like Buzzy is the reason that, Buzzy showed me how to do all this 4 years ago. And that's one thing that he said that like kind of, I just lived and died on, was that hill was like, just be consistent. The most people, the most unsubscriptions are due to skipping episodes. But I thought that was interesting. But you've always been, you've been involved with like podcasting, for a while, right?
Not really, man. It was, I have been a guest on probably like between like 6 and 10 podcasts in total that are mostly in the beer realm.
Yeah.
The only one that I did was for Very Local when I was working there. Our like boss asked us to create a Pittsburgh centric podcast.
Okay.
So we called it The Slaw.
Yeah.
And it was 3 hosts, me, Lindsay, and Stephanie, and the 3 of us was sort of like tag team it. Like, I'll take this guest, you take that guest. And that ran for a little over a year.
Yeah.
When I left to launch Trace, I mean, it was all in good terms, but they ended up discontinuing the podcast after I moved on.
Yeah.
Like I moved on and Stephanie went to Two Phrase, which is another brewery. A lot of us were like changing careers like at the beginning of 21.
I feel like the beer world and the podcasting world is like so close. You know, it's almost like the comparison of like the rap and the skateboard world. It's like they're very close, but like very different. But they have paths cross. Everyone's paths cross.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into all the the stuff that you do with the brewery, everything like that, I do an opening segment with everyone, and it's called "What's in the Cup." What's in the Cup is a segment that I do with everyone. I ask everyone what their favorite drink is. Obviously, I asked you what your drink was. You are the marketing and guest experience at Trace Brewery, so we're drinking what right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Chad. This is the Woods, and it's just our Spelt Saison. So it's a farmhouse ale. We just canned it today.
This is from today?
We brewed it about a week ago, and we canned it today.
Wow.
Literally, I was so afraid when I was coming down here that we wouldn't have cans to bring you. And Zach and Kyle and Charlie, the brewers, were canning today. So these are the first 4 cans off the line.
My goodness.
They're not even on the menu yet.
Really?
Yeah,
These aren't on the menu yet?
Just because I have to go in and update it once we finish recording tonight.
I love that.
But yeah, this is our Spelt Saison. It's just a basic Belgian farmhouse ale, so it's meant to be very approachable, very blue collar, working class, kind of like the Iron City of Belgium. You know what I mean?
It's such like a weird world for me to like kind of like dip my toe into beer right now because I'm so overwhelmed by it all because like we have so much local talent. So it's like I could go down all these paths and see all these different people and it's just overwhelming to try all these different types of beers. But I'm trying to do it enough where I could like have the knowledge and like the term. I just still don't know the terminology. So I hate talking about like what I like about it, what I dislike about it, trying to describe it to people that, have been involved in this world for a long time. But I'm smelling this now.
Yeah, give it a try, man.
It smells very good.
Yeah, you'll get a light funk tartness off of it on your tongue, but otherwise it's just a very basic, light, low alcohol. There's really not much to it. It's a very simple beer.
What's the percentage in this?
This one, so the Woods, I believe, comes in at 5.2. Let me verify. Yeah, 5.2. The marketing guide has to know. Yeah, so you can read the label if you want. There you go.
I love all the labels of, every can. Every brewery's cans, like they all come out with just like, I love the through line of the design. I love like, all the thought that's put into it. I love the weird abstract stuff. But this is interesting because the Foeder, is that how I pronounce it? Foeder?
Foeder, yeah.
Foeder. Now I tried that one. This was, what is the difference between this one and the one that's in the can right now?
Yep. So the difference is that the one in your hand in the bottle,
yes,
it says Foeder Saison because a Foeder is an oak barrel.
Yes.
The beer lived in for about, I think it lived in there for about 6 months. So it takes on some of the wood characteristic. So the beer in the can, we call that like just the base Saison because it's brewed in stainless, and then we serve it on draft in the bar or in cans. The Foeder Saison, we take that Saison, give it a little bit of time in the Foeder, which is this tall 10-barrel American oak like barrel.
Yeah.
And it comes out of the Foeder, and then we bottle it, and then we serve it. And so you're picking up some of the new flavors that are, you should get a bit of a oaky, like light caramel. It's also a little different when we crack it open and we pour it. This has a bit of a yellow gray versus the Foeder is going to have more of a brown, which is from the wood.
It's interesting to taste that one at the beer share because whenever I tasted that, it gave me like, I told Andy this, it gave me like an idea of like a champagne. It kind of had that champagne like tinge to it. Mm-hmm. Tinge is like I feel like there's a negative connotation with that, but like he said that was because of the oak barrel. Like that's kind of like where it comes from.
For sure.
But I don't have this at all out of this, the Woods.
Yeah. The Woods, which is just our, just that base Saison. It's also a little fresh, meaning that, because I brought you a few cans, if you save a few for like a week or two, let them continue sort of conditioning in the can, crack one open in like 2 weeks and try it then. I think it'll settle out even more. This is super fresh. And a lot of breweries, if you had the luxury of time, you can just like keep it in your walk-in cooler and wait. We just put them out there because we're just kind of cranking through as fast as we can. But yeah, that's just like your very approachable kind of like baseline saison. This, I don't want to say fancy, but it is a more fancy. The Fooder saison lives in the oak barrel, comes out, and definitely that champagne wine elevated feel.
Yeah, it definitely was. Like this is something like I don't know if this is necessarily my style. Whenever I first, this was also probably. How long was the beer share ago? Like a month ago or so?
Yeah.
Because Buzzy told me in the beginning, Buzzy was like, from now at this point, from a month to now, your flavor profile is going to change completely. And I was like, no way. I'm just going to only like these IPAs. But I'm starting to just like kind of try to move away from an IPA and just kind of, because for 2 months, I just tried like 30 different IPAs to try to verse myself in just an IPA. But now, Caudle, I asked him, I said, what's your favorite beer? What could I try around here that's not an IPA? And he said one of his favorite currently is Fat Gary from East End.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried that for the first time the other day, and it was just like unreal. And it's a nut brown ale. So I was just like, this is just such like a weird world for me to like kind of just dive into, but I'm excited to be able to do it because of like all the great things that are happening around here. So you as a person, aside from all this beer, obviously you're the beer guy, but I want to know who you are besides for this. So, where did you grow up? Canton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. That's where you were born.
Yeah, I was born in Massillon, so near Canton, and I grew up in Canton, Ohio. Yeah.
And I was, doing my research, doing my due diligence. Your father was hired over here to work in a factory.
Correct. Yeah, steel mill.
And where did they live before this?
Let's see. So he was born in Rangoon, Burma, which is just east of India.
Okay.
So he was born in Burma. My mom was born in Burma. They got married in Karachi, which is in Pakistan.
Okay.
And then my dad came, and then a month later, my mom could come, just with the way that the visas worked out.
Wow. And then over here, and then you were born, you have a brother?
Yeah. And I've got one younger brother. He lives in Denver, Colorado.
Awesome. That's awesome.
We're like 3 years apart.
Now, for you to grow up, obviously, I assume that not everyone you didn't grow up wanting to be involved in beer, as I'm sure a lot of people didn't. They didn't even know that was around. I read that you wanted to be an astronaut originally. Is that true?
Yeah. You definitely did some research. Yeah, I'd say space and astronomy, it was super appealing to me when I was like really young.
Yeah, like I usually ask people because we always talk about what you're focusing on. What your focus is in life. That's why people come on the podcast. So I'm always interested to hear like what the original dream was and like kind of how it navigated from there to like here. So you were into, astronomy, all that whenever you were younger, and that just like kind of carried along.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like, I would say that passion or, hobby or just like reading about space and planets continued all through like elementary and middle school until I discovered like athletics. I really got into track and field and running, and that passion just sort of like overtook everything else for about 10 years. I'd say through all of high school and all of college.
You started in middle school?
I first ran track in 8th grade. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And you enjoyed running?
Yeah, I just loved it. Yeah, I don't know if I loved it. I was good at it, but it's hard, man. Like running sucks.
Yeah, I literally have no idea. I know that you had a scholarship to Ohio, mm-hmm. and like just the idea of I don't know. I'm obviously not the most fit person, but like running elongated miles is just kind of mind blowing to me. So for people, you always hear about people that like love to run, getting that like runner's high. It's mm-hmm. always fascinating to me to like, kind of meet someone who just loves it like that.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I think that I look now that I'm, 35 and I'm living in Pittsburgh and I'm an adult, a lot of my homies who I ran with who continued running, there's a bit of a shelf life there. And so when you finish your like running career, you get into coaching or teaching or administration or any element of like post athletics,
Yeah.
So it's funny that for me, I don't really touch that. I love that like a lot of my friends are still doing it. I really like then pivoted into food and beverage. So I would like beer stuff,
So through high school and everything, you're obsessed with, track and field. Now, what was your idea of what you wanted to do as a career? You know, like what's your thought? You know, kind of, it's always just mind blowing to me whenever like you're in high school. Like for me to be, I'm 32 right now. For me to think about my life in high school and how my mindset was about where I was trying to go, what I wanted to do. It's mind blowing to try to think that like we force 15, 16-year-old kids to like make these multiple $100,000 decisions. So like, you know, where was your mind whenever that was going on?
Yeah, so like this would have been, so I finished high school in 2005.
Yeah.
So like at that era, my favorite sort of like class or, interest was journalism. So I studied journalism in college. Journalism is like a whole different world now.
Yeah.
Present day with like digital and social and YouTube and TikTok. Everything is sort of changing in the communications realm. But at that era, I knew I wanted to study journalism, and I knew that like, that was, I could write. Like I was good at writing, and I enjoy writing and storytelling. You kind of see some of that even now in my day to day. But
absolutely,
that was, I would say, besides track and running and just trying to like meet girls, hang out, just be a regular dude. Journalism, and particularly magazine journalism, like long form storytelling, was my favorite.
Oh, I love it. I love a long form. I feel like it's very important to have a long form version of pretty much anything, you know, like that's why I feel like in Pittsburgh, there was people that do podcasts, but everyone usually kind of keeps it to a short, you know, tight hour, you know, half hour. And that's not anything that I was ever interested in. I've always just really enjoyed being a fly on a wall, because in an hour long conversation, you don't really get to where you want to go with it. You know, you're just getting warmed up like 40 minutes in, and you're almost done.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be important. So journalism was interesting to you, huh?
Dude, for sure. Yeah. That was what I studied in college. I feel like, again, in that era, I'm like dating myself, but like if you entered journalism school, you picked a sequence.
Yeah.
So these sequences were like, one was broadcast, which is radio, TV. One was online. It's so funny that it's like online was a sequence, weird. Which would be like more like web news. Another was magazine, the one that I chose. Another was PR, like public relations, like working for a firm. Another one was there were all these. Gosh, I can't even think of all 6 of them, but I remember
it's like thinking, different genres.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they were all housed under the journalism umbrella, but I chose magazine because of what you said. I like that long form. You read a really beautiful feature in like the New York Times, you read a beautiful feature in Rolling Stone about an artist that you like admire. And that shit is awesome. I love that. So I was thinking to myself, like, I think magazine's the way to go. I talk a lot as it is. If I can like listen well, you can get the story out of someone, you know?
I feel like it's the hardest part for me is listening, because I get so excited. I honestly, I think you'll be episode like 207 maybe, but like up until like, I swear to God, 199, I was just like upstairs talking to my wife, and my wife was listening over with me, and she always listens, and she's like my biggest supporter, but she was like, you got to just stop talking. You just got to let people listen. And I feel like in that moment, like I kind of am getting better at it, but I just get so excited that I just want to like keep the conversation just like juiced, and I just want people to like keep feeling that same thing. But it's a muscle to exercise, trying to listen to people.
Yeah. It comes with time. Yeah, you're a good host. And I think that as you go back and edit and listen to episodes and you catch yourself like, oh, dang, if I would have like, kind of like pulled back for like one extra second, maybe this would have gone in this pathway. I feel the exact same way. I mean, you learn about yourself more than anything when you go back and like listen to all this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. You now, were you involved like what else were you involved with besides for sports throughout school? Like were you ever involved in like like student government, anything like that?
Oh man, good question. I should have. I mean, that would have been fun. I wasn't. I would say it was definitely, sorry, I'm like burping. It was definitely like track, cross country. I really like soccer. I could like sneak in a season of indoor soccer between cross country and track, which was really fun because it's like in the winter.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else I was involved in. I mean, so during college, one of my really good friends and I, we were both we're on the same track team, same cross country team. And we were also both journalism majors, and we started a magazine together called Backdrop. And Backdrop continues to this day, which is mind blowing to me that like at the end of 07, beginning of 08, oh, thanks. I'm going to give the dog a treat. At the beginning, end of 07, beginning of 08, we launched this magazine. And it was pretty funny to like see present day that the undergrads that are there are keeping it going.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really cool like moment and a really cool project to like take on, no pay, no money. Like it was purely because we just loved writing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we wanted it to be in print, particularly because that was at the rise of digital and everybody was going digital. We were like, let's try to save the romance of like print.
Yeah, it's such like a weird idea to think about that. Like magazines, like I remember like getting a CCS and or like a dance comp or any of those magazines and like looking through them. And it was such like a cool, I've always been someone who enjoyed having a book rather than like a Kindle or anything like that. I just want the physical copy of it all. But like you said, it's romantic to have that and kind of have that like the issue rather than just scrolling on your phone.
Exactly.
I used to like really love my phone and used to be really kind of obsessed with it and like always want to be on it. But as I get older, I just like, I hate it more and more and it's terrible. Have you always been someone who's been involved with social media?
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird because like, as a function of it being an industry, what we're talking like since 06, 07 onward as like someone who could like professionally pursue it, that's right as you and I came up, you know? So for me, the first jobs I got out of school were definitely not in journalism. I finished undergrad. I got a job as a French translator for a company. So I did that for 2 years.
When did you, I'm sorry, this is very tangential and I have to pause you. When did you start speaking French?
That was in middle school. I started taking French in middle school.
And you pursued it all the way up?
Through high school, and then I made it my minor in college. So
Are you fluent?
Pretty close. Much? Yeah, close to it. I would say it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
It was certainly better when I was working, in French translating.
Using it all the time.
And when I lived in DC briefly, and there are more French people, African people, Canadian people that speak it. So you use it more. In Pittsburgh, not so much,
Yeah. But my wife went to IUP for Spanish and, now she works at a bank around here. So it's like she doesn't use it as much, but she'll just like slip into, just speaking it for a second. But it's, it's just weird to think about it. Like she went to school for it, but doesn't really use it for her career. It's I don't know. It's interesting to think about that.
Totally. Yes. I like started in that whole different scope. Then like French translating, it can get pretty boring, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool language and it's fun to do and it's fun to have that skill set. But that's what pulled me to Pittsburgh because I was living in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I moved to Pittsburgh in 2012 for grad school and with the thought that I would do policy. Like I studied public policy in grad school.
Okay.
That's also really messy right now. I mean, as you can tell, government's like a mess.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, well, maybe that's not my thing. And kind of like one thing led to another. And you're thinking about, journalism and storytelling and policy and language. And it all just kind of like started kind of moving in this realm where the one thing that made sense to me was hospitality and particularly food and bev. So like, I guess for me, I didn't ever think I'd be like behind a bar, growing up or serving tables or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just sort of, I got so much happiness and passion out of that by giving somebody an experience through like tasting or smelling or trying something new that like that then became like the more like life career where like life and work kind of intersect.
Yeah.
Like that was what drove me for sure was hospitality.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear. It's definitely interesting. Now you moved to Pittsburgh in what year you said? 2012?
2012, yeah. So I've been here 10 years.
10 years now.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, before you moved here, have you ever been here?
Yeah, a few times. Let's see here. Definitely like growing up when I was younger, Carnegie Science Center was a really fun trip. I think that like when you're young, Pittsburgh has a amazing museum scene. The Carnegie System, the Science Center, the Warhol, all that stuff was only 2 hours, from like Akron. So definitely coming into town to visit with parents and do that stuff. And then coming back as I got older to like party and like I got on Carson Street, like when I was like in college. And then I briefly dated a girl here when I was living in Cleveland. So I was making that trip down 76 like every week.
Yeah.
Then moving here was like, cool, this is like home base,
Yeah, it's such an interesting place to be. I mean, I've never, for a brief second, I was like, oh, maybe we should move away, go to Colorado or something like that. But I just kind of can't see myself moving away from here. I really enjoy just having a space here. I really enjoy the size of the city, not having to drive hours and hours away. But it's so interesting that you bring up the idea of like, what I would assume a lot of Pittsburghers take advantage of, not utilizing like the museum scene and the science center. It's like we lived here, so like it was always just a stone's throw away. But like for surrounding areas like that, I never really thought of it as a destination for people to like come in and like, frequent here just because of that. I don't think I went to the museums whenever I was real young as much. It's interesting to think about that. Your parents, do they have an idea of what they like your career? Did they have an idea of what you wanted to, like, how did I want to phrase it? Like, my parents did not really support any extra arts as far as like if I wanted to go to school for being a photographer or like a special effects artist. They were like, no, you got to go to school for something a little bit more substantial than that. Where were your parents' mindsets at with as far as like your schooling and your career?
I think that because I was the firstborn, it was just a huge experiment, right?
Yeah.
So you get the first kid out, which was me, and it was sort of like a blank canvas. So they did support, and they were cool with like other things that maybe wouldn't pan out into a very like fruitful career as far as like financially.
Yeah.
Then they had my brother, and like, well, we learned from that one. So Adnan, my brother's an engineer, which is so funny. He works in software in Denver, and he makes like 3 times what I make, and he's great. I love that kid. But Adnan, they kind of like tightened down. They're like, well, we saw Adam mess up, and just get in trouble, and I was rebellious, and I'm like running track. Like, what the hell is that? Like nothing that was like gonna really pan out.
Yeah.
And then they had him, and it's so funny because even from a perspective of like foreign languages, like I speak 3 languages like pretty fluently between like Hindi, English, and French. And my brother just speaks English, and that's so interesting to me because we're only 3 years apart.
Yeah.
But they were like, well, language is fun and it's cool, but really if we can just hammer down like math and science, you can like do something and be somebody. So he literally went to Akron for engineering, got a job in software, and has just been like propelling his career up from there, which is great.
Wow.
We're like extremely different.
Yeah.
Like left brain, right brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to answer your question, my parents are cool with me pursuing, musical instruments. I played piano. I took French, right? Like I ran track. I really liked going out. I have a vibrant social life versus like Adnan was like a nerd, but like he's a great kid. But like, man, it's so funny seeing now that, so he's your age, he's 32 and I'm 35 and we are extremely different people. You know what I mean?
You said you have a vibrant social life. I would say that, you're a vibrant social life person.
I just like going out, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last thing that I saw was you at the Lagerfest in that nice suit. I mean, you can't beat that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks good. Now, you coming back to Pittsburgh, when does the whole love of beer come into play? When did you start drinking? Were you like a high school, drinking dad beer and stuff like that?
Definitely. Yeah. Oh yeah. I really loved that's my dog. Sorry. She's like getting on the mic.
That's all right.
I loved, drinking underage, getting in trouble, like partying, all that was like fun and funny, like drinking like Natty and Bud Light.
Yeah.
But I think what kind of like brought me into food and bev more seriously was definitely like at the end of 2015 when the Ace Hotel opened in Pittsburgh. I remember like just becoming friends with a lot of their staff and their bartenders and their folks who worked there. And they would talk about like, food and bev and the chef and the pastry chef and the bartenders and the coffee staff. And they were all sort of this like really interesting fluid dynamic of people who were so passionate about hospitality.
Yeah.
And that really like impacted me. I was like, wow, like all of you really care about this stuff. And about a year later in 2016, a buddy of mine bought a decommissioned school bus and made it into a beer tour. So he and his name was Andy. He ended up moving to Iowa, but when
Porter Brewery Tours.
Yeah, Porter Tours, exactly.
Okay.
And Cody's done it, and Chance has done it, and a lot of our friends that we have in common have done the tour. But we would just take this bus and we would pick 3 or 4 breweries per weekend, and we would handle the driving. So you could go hop on the bus with us. You get a flight of samples at each stop and a tour of the back to show how the beer was made.
Wow.
And that really, really kind of like,
I love that.
Got the gears going, because that was when I was like, man, like this isn't a full-time job. Because it was just weekends. It was just purely like for weekends.
Yeah.
All of us, Andy and I, we kept our day jobs. But I was like, man, like, and at that era, man, like Pittsburgh started to blow up with like new breweries. At that era, I remember our portfolio of breweries that we went to was a total of about 23 breweries.
Yeah.
Every tour we'd pick 3. So we would be like, let's see what's nearby one another. I would always pick up guests in Crafton. I know you mentioned you lived in Crafton.
Yeah.
I made so many trips to Crafton, and then we would swing through like McKees Rocks and like hop over to Abjuration. We'd hop over to like East End, Sharpsburg, Castle Shannon, like all these areas with like little pockets of breweries. And it was funny because that got me thinking about working in beer.
Yeah.
Not just like being a tour guide or like a bartender, but really like getting into it.
Like, how into it were you? Were you someone who was like trying all the different styles of beer? And like, were you someone who was like really like, you know, you went out of your way to like try different types of beers, or were you just like a casual drinker? Like, I'll drink whatever's there.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. Yeah, even to this day, I'm open to anything. I struggle with some of the beers that contain lactose just because it kind of like messes my stomach. But otherwise, yeah, if you're a brewer or a brewery and you want me to try something, I'll try anything. But at that era, I definitely was, what I was thinking about was like trying to actually talk to brewers or listening to brewers, because we go on this tour and often I would give the tour, or I would, give them a little preview of like what's going on. But sometimes the brewers would be there. They're either cleaning or cellaring or dry hopping or even brewing. That was dope because then my guests got a tour from the brewer of the actual brewery.
Absolutely.
And then I could take a step back and just listen. And that's what kind of got me thinking about, how does it get from like a bag of grain and like water to your glass? So seeing that process like through that angle was really cool.
Have you always been someone who's been like wanting to know like how it's made, like asking a lot of questions, like growing up?
I think
like
so, yeah.
That's kind of how I was. I remember I always had like the how it's made books, and like I've always kind of been fascinated with just like, why shit does what it does, why it is the way it is. And like, I love that. Like if I get into something, I got into coffee, I immediately want to just like kind of get to the roots of it and brew my own and just like learn how it is. So, I appreciate that. Like, that's pretty awesome that you guys did that. And you said that was 2015.
Yeah, so the tour went from 2016 until basically the pandemic. Yeah, it was like, I remember I got my like commercial driver's license at the beginning of 17 to like drive the bus. And
you got a CDL?
I got a CDL. Isn't that funny?
Wow.
And at that time, I didn't even own a car. Yeah, my only car was the
you
bus.
Didn't own a car?
Yeah, I like went to the CDL office and I took the bus there.
So wait, Jens bought a school bus. And you went and you got a CDL in the school bus.
No, I took the city bus to AAA to like sit down for like the exam.
God. Okay.
Yeah.
Now CDL, I know a lot of people that have it. What's the process of getting it? Is it a long process?
No, it wasn't too bad. So ours was it was the lowest level of CDL you could like have.
Yeah, there's different classes, right? There's
different classes. Yeah. I mean, we're talking like, I was certified to drive like 15 people on our bus. Basically like a class C, like almost like a passenger level.
Yeah.
But I took the medical exam. I did like the little like physical exam. They make you just go to like an Urgent Express and make sure you're like healthy and you check out. And then after the medical and drug test and all of that, then it was just some like basic maneuverability.
Wow.
And there's the dog. She like wandered away.
That's all right.
But yeah, it was funny like getting through that process. And then Andy, like my I guess business partner, was like, all right, cool. We're gonna start like taking you on these tours, and then you'll drive between a few breweries, and then eventually, as you get comfortable, we'll just have you like lead the whole thing.
Wow.
And that was it.
I feel like that. I feel like growing up, I was almost duped into not knowing what was out there, or the potential of it, because I feel like a tour guide, that's like, that shit that's like right up my alley, that just like didn't really, in school, I always remember people just saying like, oh yeah, go and become an engineer, doctor, whatever, stuff like that. We didn't have like, they didn't spend a lot of time highlighting trades or highlighting other options. It was still under that like, very archaic type norm that like, stick to the plan and don't divert. But it's interesting to think of that. That's funny that you got a CDL without having a car.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, because then I bought my moped and like I have that, and that's hilarious. But like, yeah, there was a period of time where the only vehicle I drove was a bus.
You did pretty good. You did pretty good driving the bus.
Yeah, I did. I mean, dude, like taking it up Rialto was so gnarly, like up into Troy Hill.
Yeah.
A couple of times I got rerouted through traffic to go to like Penn Brewery the back way.
I would have anxiety.
Man, I wish you could have seen the looks on the guests' faces. They're like, oh my God, he's going to go up that. And it was like, you're looking at Rialto on a 15 passenger short school bus.
Yeah.
And you just have to like put it in gear and just don't stop.
Yeah. Just
roll
gun
back.
it. I know that would be ridiculous. When I got married, we got married up in Somerset in this like back ass farm. And we had a bus for me and the bridal party and my wife to go back like probably 25 minutes. This lady was old as dirt that was driving it. It was like 1 a.m. People were just messed up. And I remember we're driving and this lady's just taking us down this back ass road. And I was like, this definitely ain't it. She turns up this dirt road and we take a full bus just up like this goat path. And I really thought that I was going to have to get out and try to like go get help. But she ended up making up there. Lady was a trooper. But I'll never forget that. Very interesting.
That is amazing. Yeah.
Now, these tours, though, that's pretty awesome that you guys did that. Now, what, you being involved with this, you said you were still working a day job. Like, what's your day job at that time?
So I worked for the beauty shop, which is a co-working space. I just led their marketing, and then I actually left the beauty shop to just do my own freelance marketing practice. So I took on little scopes of work around like content creation for coffee shops and restaurants and brands around town, and that was pretty cool. You learn a lot about like business when you try to do your own thing.
Yeah.
And I did that from like 2017 until just at the end of 2018 was when Very Local started.
Yeah.
And they asked me, they were like, hey, we're not like acquiring you, but basically, could you stop taking on freelance work if we give you a full-time job? And I was like, sure. It was kind of like, I don't want to say acqui-hire, but like an exchange of like what I was doing for myself was what they wanted me to do for like that brand.
Yeah. And they were just going to field the people that you were going to do it for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's good. It's understandable because it's like they're doing the work for you to do it, but you're still getting to do what you love and not having to worry about out there searching it for it.
Yeah, and not having to invoice, not having you're just like a W-2 full-time employee. So I was
that's
like, all right,
cool.
like that's cool. That's if you can pay me about what I'm paying myself, then like that's fair. Because I get to just keep doing content. But now it's for the TV station because they were owned by WTAE.
Yeah, like it's so weird because I feel like I didn't know much about it. Like I remember seeing it years ago, like in around 2018, but I feel like it just started popping up again recently with the local shows that are happening that are on like the TV station. And it's wild that I still hear about stuff that, I've been here forever, but I'll hear about a restaurant that I've never heard of. And it's wild to me that I have not heard about it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That was my like, I guess, beat or like the area that I like mostly covered was beer, coffee, and restaurants. There were a few other things, but beer I got to like stay in that lane.
Yeah.
Because now I'm doing porter tours. I ended my freelance practice. I took on Very Local.
Yeah.
I'm doing a beer column, which is super fun. That was like very rewarding, and that was also cool to then sit down and do this.
Yeah.
Interview brewers about beer and about what they're making. So then I'm interviewing them for my column, which dropped every Tuesday. At the end of 2020, my column won the Golden Quill for like Western PA, like journalism, which was like a huge, I couldn't even believe it.
No big deal or nothing.
I know, right? Like I was
that's
like,
awesome.
My editor nominated it. And I was like, Lindsay, like this is a beer column. This isn't even like that good. And then it ended up winning like best non-daily column, from like that like press club association.
That's
so that
really
was like
awesome.
Pretty validating. Yeah. Thank you, man. It was cool to see folks actually reading it, recognizing it. People like coming up to me like, oh, like I read your beer column. Like I like to know what's coming up in beer in the city.
Yeah. And of course, some knowledge from it.
Totally, man.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
And at that era, there were so many breweries opening, so
Yeah,
like
it's
a lot
wild.
of my day to day was like not just talking about what you could drink or what event you could attend or
what's about to happen
but-
and what's opening.
right. Like every month, it felt like another brewery would open. So I'd have to, scramble, get out there and interview these folks to be like, hey man, tell me about your location, your beer, your vibe, your tap room. So that became like my whole thing, like just like interviewing people opening new breweries.
Yeah, it's wild. Andy said that that Hitchhiker and I think he said Dancing Them, they both opened in like the same week or two, and it's like another brewery opened in the same week as two, and it's weird to think that like it kind of just caught on. And how many breweries are in the city now?
There are 46 in Allegheny County. Yeah, there are. Yeah, I think there are 46 in this county as of today. Yeah, because like another one just opened like last week.
That's pretty wild.
Isn't that gnarly?
It is pretty wild to like, like I said, it's overwhelming for me to like try to want to, get to all of them and try all of them. But, okay. So, let's, you want to open another beer?
I'd love to. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I know we kind of powered through that one. What are you in
That's
the
all
mood
right.
for? Because I brought more Saison, I brought some IPA, and then there's also this guy too.
Let's save this for last. You said this is your favorite, right?
It is.
Best
yeah.
for last. Now, do you want to bust open an IPA?
Sure. Are they just right behind me?
Yeah, they're either, I think I put some in the cooler right there too. Now, your whole, initiation with, the people involved with Trace, how does your introduction happen with them? How do you get involved with them? And how does that kind of,
Yeah.
come
So
to be?
good question. So with Trace, yeah. So let's see here. So if we fast forward, end of 2018, I started very local. It's super interesting that we're doing this digital concept as like a city guide, and then let's see here. So this whole time I lived at the corner of Butler and 45th Street in Lawrenceville, right above New Amsterdam, like on the left. And my neighbor is this guy named Dave, and Dave lives on 46th Street. And Dave and I become friends. We just meet randomly at Dancing Gnome at a brewery, and we had a couple beers, and he's like, I'd love to open a brewery. And I feel like everyone says that. I'm like, yeah, man, like whatever, dude. Like I didn't really like take it seriously. And then he was like, no, for real. Like I'm going to like raise money and find a building and get equipment and hire a brewer. Do you like that?
This is delicious. Wow.
Thank you. That's
like
the
kind of
Hop Royalty IPA.
punch me in the mouth with flavor.
Yeah.
Hop Royalty. I'm sorry to steer you off. Hop Royalty, 7%. Wow. This is delicious.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you're okay with it. I know you're not a huge drinker, but like I wanted to bring a little bit of variety for today, and and I feel like IPAs are pretty trendy.
I've been well versed in myself. I think I'm up to maybe 48 beers now.
That's
so,
awesome.
I'm getting there.
I love that.
But so you and Dave met happenstance at a brewery, and he said that he wanted to open one, as a lot of people do, I'm sure.
Sure, for sure, yeah, but he was like really serious about it. So then we keep in touch. He in 2018, he actually was basically living in two cities, Pittsburgh and Boston, and he opened a brewery in Boston called Remnant. And Remnant, he would travel back and forth because his wife's here, and he'd be going back and forth, and he'd bring a Remnant beer back to Pittsburgh. Oh. So we'd get together at his house and drink it. And I was like, yo, this is really, really good.
And he was brewing it?
No, he had a brewer up there. Yeah,
okay.
He was just the owner. Yeah, he had brewed in the past.
Yeah,
working at other breweries, but then he kind of elevated into like an ownership role or level.
Okay.
So then he would hire the head brewer. He would get the equipment built out, and then just sort of manage the day to day. But the funny thing was, as I meet him and he's bringing back these Remnant beers from Boston, getting serious about opening a concept in Pittsburgh, I was like, yeah, man, let me know if you're for real and you want to do this. I'll leave my day job and I'll work with you because I trust you and you're a good dude. And this is kind of the direction I see my career going, is definitely in beer. Yeah. So, I think that we should team up. And he was like, all right, cool. So then I kept my day job at Very Local. We just keep in touch. And then in the spring of 2020, COVID's hitting, which sucks. But he has the building. He's ready to go. He's like, all right, cool. We could probably open this thing, at some point once it's all built out. So we started getting serious and talking about, imagining the brand. So I started kind of building the brand story around Trace, the social, the visual identity, just the website.
Well, talk me through it. Where does the name Trace come from?
Well, two things. One was it wasn't taken on Google.
I know. I swear to God. Ain't that crazy?
There's so many names.
Everything you find now, you have to Google it.
Yeah.
That's literally it. You have to Google it because why build a brand under something that's already done?
Totally. I mean, yeah, even I like your brand because it's multiple words, and it's probably highly unlikely that somebody else has a podcast called I'll Call You Right Back.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse because it's too much shit to put on something too. It's a lot of words on one thing. But I made a clothing brand a long time ago, and I made it something, and at that point in time, I loved it. Everything was poured into that. And then about 8 months after I made it, I saw another company in Canada was way bigger. They were like a biker company, but they were just spelled a little bit different, but it completely took all the wind out of my sails. Because I was like, I'm not going to build this brand under another established brand because I don't want people to think that I'm biting off of it. Immediately stopped it. So I had a podcast in 2013 with Buzzy, long time ago, whenever Work Hard was just before Work Hard. And I stopped after that dissolved, and then I literally just was trying to figure out a name for years, and it's kind of just popped into my head. But it's weird how that is a thing that you have to worry about nowadays, is everything's taken. Me and Andy were just talking about the names of beers.
Yeah.
It's everything is taken basically.
Yeah, but that's a lot of the beer naming conventions come from, maybe inspired by the beer, what's in the glass, but also is it already taken, and it's tough. A lot of them are. Trace was not taken, and then the second part of it was it's a little abstract, and I think anybody who like steps inside a Trace can just interpret it as they will. But and I think you've been to the tap room, right?
Yeah, I've been in there. It's beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, when you step inside, that building used to be a brass foundry, like way back, like 1900, and then it was like black and white film photo, and then it was an automotive center and paint manufacturing. It's had like multiple lives, and so if you could stand inside the building and trace back what it was before it was a brewery, that was our hope. That's why we left the walls kind of raw,
absolutely,
with the ceilings like very exposed and not overly polished.
Yeah,
still kind of gritty.
I like that. I like the industrial type of look to it. It has character to it. It's like the patina on something great. The fireplace in the back room, I can't remember exactly the style that those are called, but they're amazing.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's like a mid-century vibe.
Yeah, mid-century. I love everything mid-century. I can't remember the exact name of it, but Tollgate Revival, that guy, he always has them.
Seth, he's Seth, awesome.
Great,
yeah.
Absolutely great. But I actually went to Trace to meet with Charles from Pittsburgh Then and Now.
Yeah, love
and
that dude.
I got a history lesson while I was sitting there with him having a coffee. Obviously, I go there to meet someone, and of course, Cottle walks in immediately. I was there at like 8 a.m., and of course, he rolls in, and he's like, I'm going to have a beer. I was like, all right.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was going to say, you're probably there on a Friday.
Yeah.
Cottle comes every Friday at 8:30. He gets the exact same beer.
Yeah, Pilsner Friday, right?
Every week. Yeah,
every week.
It's really funny. But Charles is great. I have a lot of admiration for Charles. He comes to Trace pretty regularly. He's not really a drinker, but he has such a wide variety of knowledge on both our building and the neighborhood, Bloomfield. So we just pick his brain. Dave and I have talked to him for hours about, like, hey, can you share a little bit more about what this used to be?
He's really fascinating. Like what a like a lost art form to like, for people that don't know who he is, Pittsburgh Then and Now on Instagram is an account that basically talks about every interesting historical thing that has to do with our city, the surrounding areas, and I'm working on him to get him on here. He'd
be great.
He would be great. He says that he has to get through the social anxiety end of it all, but I want him to come on here and talk about it because it's fascinating to learn about. He's very good at what he does.
For sure. If you get him going, I think it'll be, as you do your research and you pick out, even if you delineate it by neighborhoods or buildings or whatever, talking to Charles it's funny because I'm pretty sure he's younger than me by a lot.
Yeah.
Right? I think he's in his 20s. Dude is wise beyond his years.
And even just me sitting there with a cup of coffee with him, it's just, you could tell that like, I can't even imagine the amount of knowledge in his head.
Yeah, the gears are turning. Yeah, I like when he'll take a step back and he'll look around and he'll be like, yeah, this is where like, this was, and this fireplace or this chimney, or like there used to be like a restroom there. And like he just, he's operating at a very different level than I am, very analytical. And because he works in archives, like he's an archivist and historian, which is amazing, he has access to the public records of actually all these plots.
Yeah, it's wild.
He just literally, I think it was yesterday, shared a photo of, the IGA SureSave across the street.
Yep.
So there's like this old image from like the 60s of that. Someone like took a picture right there coming off the bridge.
Yeah.
And you can see the building that we are in.
Yeah.
In the shot, and I was like, that's wild. That's so gnarly.
It is wild. Bloomfield is just an interesting spot over there. I never really frequented it, and then Pat from Bankrupt got his spot over there, and kind of we talked about why his historical ties to Bloomfield and how cool of a place it was, and it really is. I growing up all through high school up until I was probably 21, I didn't frequent the city that much. So like I never really was down Lawrenceville. I never really was down the Strip. I was never really, someone who like really knew what we had there. And then I moved out of my hometown and the other side of the city and started to kind of expand and see all the potential and all the great things around us. And it's wild to know the ties that this city has and like the history that it has behind it.
Yeah, I do totally, man. As somebody who is not from here, I'm from Ohio and moving here, you see the pride in the folks that are from here, and you see the way that the city celebrates its past and keeps stuff looking in that same sort of vein of what it was. Exteriors, interiors, just like Pittsburgh isn't trying to knock a bunch of stuff down and rebuild it. Pittsburgh's trying to sort of preserve what it's got for the most part, and that is so remarkably different from a city like Columbus.
Yeah.
And like no shade on Columbus, but like I just can't see myself like living there or in Ohio, because I think that what their strategy is like, knock it down and polish it and build it fresh.
Beautiful new things.
Beautiful new things.
Not everyone wants that.
Right. And it's nice. I mean, it's nice that everything works. I mean,
for sure.
It's very modern. But Pittsburgh has this old, historic vibe going. And particularly working at Trace, I love the brewery scene. And it's funny because when we were thinking about build out materials, how we wanted to kind of activate that space, there are some gorgeous breweries like Cinderlands and Dancing Note that are beautiful, right?
Beautiful.
They're very, very clean, polished. And not that we're not clean, but we knew that like being in Bloomfield, to appeal to the locals, to appeal to some of the elderly folks who just know that area, we couldn't go that route.
It needed to be raw.
It needed to be a little bit more raw.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of the ethos of Trace. So you step inside, trace back what it was before it was a brewery. And hopefully, I think that its most recent life was a punk rock DIY venue called The Shop. I think you might already know that.
I don't think I did.
From 2008 to 2016, the building we're in was a DIY punk rock venue. So super like crust punk, like just like rock shows, rehearsal spaces for bands.
I don't think I've ever even heard of The Shop.
Yeah, it was pretty underground, and it was pretty gnarly because it was basically BYO. You could bring like a case of PBR and just like drink beer and rock out and
Chaos.
Yeah, it was literally just like DIY punk rock. Like I'd only been there like once ever. And then when The Shop finished being The Shop and it was just sitting there, Dave got it, made a Trace. And now some of those folks who played in those bands have come in. And my hope is that like they're cool with like it being a brewery.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a bit of a vibe or like a pretension or something that's like, oh, this is like fancy. It's like craft beer. Like what is this, And my hope is that like there's something there for them as well that's not overly polished or overly produced. It's just like is what it is.
As someone in the brewery scene, do you experience a lot of that? Like, kind of, I don't know, what would you call it? Like almost like, the taboo to the craft, like almost like the hipster scene of it all. Like, do you experience that? Is that like something that, that goes on? Do you know what I mean? Kind of?
Yeah, I think people, at least in Pittsburgh, are very thankfully self-aware. So particularly at Trace, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because like our staff, we didn't hire a staff from breweries. They came from like conventional service industries. So like they're very like, ear to the ground, tuned in on hospitality and service, but not as much on beer.
Yeah.
Which it ends up benefiting us for sure. It's really funny because other breweries do hire primarily from beer.
Yeah.
And so you'll have maybe some pre-existing stereotypes or notions or bad habits that come with that. Our staff came in pretty much like a blank slate, and they're learning from Zach, our head brewer, and myself and Dave, and just around all this stuff that goes into this product, this experience.
Yeah.
But I would say in Pittsburgh, man, we're really lucky that like we don't see it too much. I think that I'm trying to think of any examples I can give you of like where I've felt like it's too highbrow or like
like I'm just new to it, so like I didn't know if that was something that's like experienced. Like I know that I know that everyone has their gatekeepers and people that just don't that don't like subscribe to the, ideals of like one certain group than the other. But like, I don't know. I just never understood if like craft scenes was just like, kind of, stuffy, people turn their nose up to it, but it makes sense not to, because like I have no negative any experience of it at all. Like the half-ass beer share was like probably one of the funnest times I've had in a while, because I literally knew no one but Cotto and Buzzy and Marissa, obviously my sister, and she, like everyone else there was so welcoming, and like just like the experience of like people trying to talk new people through different beers, why this is like that, why this tastes like this. You might not like it because of this. You might not be ready for it because of this. I feel it's a very like, what's the right word? It's a welcoming environment.
Yeah.
It's a welcoming scene in general.
Man, that is so refreshing and good to hear, because I think that if we were to have this same conversation maybe 8 or 10 years ago, it might have been a little bit different. I think that there's a lot of, pushback from folks who have felt like, oh, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And they feel, nobody likes to feel left out or bullied or, they're not part of something. And so there's this sort of, what I think is this positivity and this welcoming environment that like we would love for you to try something, and ideally something on our menu is something that you will like.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't want to do like a all one track or like one method. We offer seltzer, we offer cider, we offer cocktails, we have a coffee shop. You know, we offer things that aren't just craft beer.
Yeah.
I love our beer, and I am a beer drinker, but like I know that there are folks who are very, very different from me. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting because like a good business person could set aside your personal preferences and be able to, cater to the masses in the same way and kind of respect it. But it's interesting for you to kind of like in your process of building out this brand, what are your ideas before this becomes Trace? Like what are the ideas that you wanted to kind of adhere to? I mean, are you kind of just, are you and Dave kind of just figuring it out along the way as far as like, do you have an idea of like, what type of beers you want to do in the beginning, how big you want to go in the beginning, talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it's funny because if you look at the Trace brand, and I'm trying to be like as self-aware and like kind of like a bird's eye view, sometimes it feels to me like the beer takes a back seat. And I've told that to Zach, our brewer, and I mean it with all due respect because he's a very good brewer. We just do a ton of events, man. We do so many events and things that sort of appeal to folks who aren't conventional beer drinkers. So we have a whole series of drag brunch like devoted to the LGBT and gay community.
Yeah.
Then we have Slappers and Bangers, this whole hip hop, trap, R&B series. We're going to do 5 trap parties this summer in the Trace Beer Garden. And it's a vibe. It's so fun to see the black community, to see Ron and Neil up there DJing. People are dancing, people are twerking. We remove all the furniture. It's like a whole different vibe, right? Then we have our live art series where artists come in with paint and actually live paint right there in the tap room while folks are drinking. And sometimes it feels as though these things that are happening parallel to the beer end up taking some of the spotlight, which is totally fine. That's part of, being in Bloomfield, being in the city, being this like urban brewery with no parking and gender neutral restrooms and, and this activated like space where you could step in and there's probably something going on 7 nights a week besides the food trucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that because it was COVID, we started with just like takeout cans. So we certainly were talking about styles of beer. Going back to your question, I feel like Zach was like saying, we'd love to brew a beer that appeals or have a menu that appeals to every type of beer drinker.
Yeah.
Right. So that was out the gate. We were doing Saison, IPA, lager, sours, stouts, porters. Like we'll try to like pop through and cycle through one of every style. I feel like when I think about Trace from a beer perspective, the 3 styles that we really lean into are definitely IPA, which you're having right now.
Absolutely delicious.
Thank you.
Really
Thank
is.
You. Yeah, Zach's a really, really talented IPA brewer and just brewer in general. But I would say IPA, lager, and Saison are the 3 styles that we hope to have on year round. Other styles we will do seasonally as well. And then just rounding it out with like every other thing we do, including the wild program. So we have a barrel program, we have a cool ship where we open ferment beer, just different things that sort of appeal to other different types of drinkers. And that it's awesome. We're very lucky to have all that happening, but the brand, the way it expresses itself is, it's this sort of inclusive community space that ends up morphing and changing night over night and day over day. And we open 7 days a week at 8 a.m. because we have a coffee shop, which is like a blessing and a curse. It's crazy.
Now I have a person who's been on before, Josh Getzoff. Okay. The announcer for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah. He is a big beer guy.
I love Josh.
And I would say he's the one who got the ball rolling. Because whenever I came over, I do the what's in the cup and I asked him what he wanted. And he said he wanted any IPA. And I had a couple, I knew that I was going on vacation. So I went to a brewery, got one from Virginia. We had it together and he was like, there's some great people in the city. Why don't you have any of these people on? And it kind of just like clicked in my mind. I was like, I need to kind of get involved with this. But I hit Josh up and I was like, what would you be interested in hearing about Trace? And you kind of just answered it. He said their approach has been kind of a welcome change from just a brewery. Very active in the community and outspoken on a lot of issues socially. Why did you choose to go that route? And it's great that it is, because it's like you guys are very involved in all these different things. I see so many different things through your social medias, and you seem to always just want to be involved, whether it be cans at the Bankrupt Bodega parties or, other events that you're at right now. And it's so cool to like see that sort of like, expansion beyond just a great, delicious beer in a can that you could get at any store, because realistically you could stop it at that. You could just sell these cans and people could know you by that, but to go out of your way and to kind of be on the forefront of wanting to be active in the community and be people that a conduit to, all this great things. Like it's cool to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. It's very good to hear that like people kind of see that and feel that. I think that like breweries that are pretty product or beverage forward, it's awesome. And I go to a lot of those breweries. I just don't know if like that's exactly the direction Trace is going.
Yeah.
It's about the experience and it's about, this sort of building community kind of vibe. We definitely do though have regulars who do talk about the product, who come in and ask for these brands by name. That's sweet. I love when I hear that because I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like I posted about that beer like a week ago, or I posted about that beer 3 days ago, and they saw it and they come in and they hold up their phones and they ask for it. And I'm like, cool. So that's working, but that speaks to like the beer nerd or the beer drinker.
Yeah.
What about that whole other part of Pittsburgh that just is looking for like, a fun experience?
Well, I think that what you're doing in that end of it all is what is so approachable as someone who is brand new to beer. If you were someone who is more about just like, the drinks forward and it's kind of just like, this is our product, and they kind of just keep it at that, which is cool. Like it's absolutely understandable, but it's interesting because, seeing all these events and everything like that, you could tell that it's welcoming. You could tell that, you want people to be involved with it. And it's interesting because a guy that was involved with me to like kind of get involved with all these beers, an older guy at my work. Okay. He's one of the owners at my work. He is a big beer guy. I've known about it, and I didn't drink it all, but I came in and I told him, I was like, yo, I'm going to start drinking these. I'm going to start talking to all these people because he's telling me about all these breweries. And I mentioned Trace. He didn't know who you guys were, but the next weekend, I was like, oh, I'm going to this place called Trace. It was whenever I was meeting Charles, and I was like, it's a brewery in Bloomfield, and he was like, I've never heard about it. So whenever I was there getting coffee with Charles, I got him a 4-pack, and I brought him in, and it turns out he was there the day that I was there beforehand, and he's just this dude who lives in the country out in Washington, loves the beer, absolutely loves the beer, and been there numerous times, and it's cool because, the beer is the through line. Doesn't matter what type of person you are. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are, what you subscribe to. Everyone is going to enjoy the beer. But for the people that are not just the beer people, you do your part into creating an environment that's welcoming for people that are not as well versed as others.
Yeah,
and,
it just
cool
takes a little bit more
that.
effort. Thank you. Yeah, it's just that's kind of like our foot forward is we love the product and the beverage. We love the fact that we have, literally the beer manufacturing space is amongst the tap room. Like it's all one building. But at the end of the day, like I think the Trace ethos and the way we express the brand, is mostly just through the different things happening in the space. We're lucky to have the beer garden. We're lucky to have the cool ship room, sort of these elements of the space that allow, other groups to have it. Like, dude, tomorrow night, it's really funny. There is a pierogi making class happening in the cool ship room, right? So this woman, Sarah, she's going to come in, and she's done it before. She brings all the materials. People sign up through her website. They show up. We'll give them beer, but they're going to be folding and making pierogies. I think that's really cool that like she found a way to activate that space and to do it like that, which couldn't be more different than like tonight we have an artist and she's doing live art in the space, and that's going to speak to like a very different community, right? Than like the pierogi making class. And then like Saturday, there's like other stuff, right? And then Sunday, there's like a fundraiser. So it's just kind of a constant like day by day.
I love
the
that.
space sort of changes.
That's incredible. What is another question from Josh? What's the most arduous beer to brew?
Oh man, like the hardest?
I guess.
I mean, so as someone who's not in production, I'll answer the best I can.
Yeah.
I love drinking lager, and lager is extremely finicky and hard to brew. because lager ferments at a lower temperature and has to be temperature controlled. So if you find yourself drinking like, Iron City or Bud or Miller, like these macro lagers, they do what they do quite well. Yeah. And they do that because that's just what they do. And as a small, we're a 10-barrel brewery. So every batch of beer yields about 20 kegs.
Yeah.
For us to do lager, Zach, we're lucky to have Zach who knows what he's doing and is very good at it. But lager is unforgiving, and you can't make a mistake. If you make a mistake in a hazy IPA, you can kind of hide behind your hops because the hops express so much flavor and aroma. But lager is probably, to Josh's point, it's arduous. It takes a lot of effort. If you make a mistake, guests will know. They'll
unforgiving
for sure, man. That's why I think this year we're seeing a resurgence in lager.
You're the lager.
Yeah, we keep seeing that over and over. And I think it's true. I agree to it. And I love drinking lager. But like, dude, it's funny that like a lot of these breweries don't do lager. A lot of them choose not to because I know it's difficult. And you might not have the equipment or the temperature control or the right yeast, like a lager yeast that ferments in a different way to do that. That probably is the best way I could answer that is like,
that's a fair answer.
If you
for
can do
sure.
a really good lager, you're doing stuff the right way for sure.
That's interesting. What was, before you became like, kind of completely submersed into this world, like what was your beer of choice?
Oh, good question. I remember when I was like in college, I remember drinking, there's a brewery in Michigan called Bell's. And I remember drinking Bell's Oberon and like Bell's Two Hearted and Bell's Brown. Bell's Brewery was like one of the first like craft kind of breweries.
That was
around.
the first brewery. That was the Bell's Two Hearted Ale was the first beer I had from Buzzy. And I was just like, I don't know how anyone could drink this.
Oh, yeah,
I remember
you didn't like it?
No.
So
I remember
piney.
him giving me it, and I remember just taking a sip of it and thinking, like, this literally tastes like gasoline. And he was like, this is amazing. Like, everything's great about it. And for years, I just never understood the beauty behind it, but I'm definitely getting it now. Like, I'm to the point now where I could, like, it's like trying to get accustomed to coffee. Yeah. It's like in the beginning, you're just pretending that it tastes good. And then, eventually one day you're just going to realize that it's not that bad. Yeah. But I'm to that point now where I could like enjoy different beers, taste what's different about them. And like, kind of just be able to like, comb through them at a different level.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. Yeah. I forgot about Bell's. You said they were one of the first crafts, like one of the bigger ones that that I could think of.
They pioneered some of those styles that we now know as like iconically, part of the American beer scene. Because that would have been like 08, 09. Growing up in Ohio and then going to Ohio University, Jackie O's is a brewery in Athens that I know we talked about Buzzy. Buzzy loves them. They're fantastic. I drank a lot of Jackie O's just because I lived in Athens and I went to college down there. But I remember people would bring in these like imports, right? Like the stuff from out of town. And drinking Bell's at that era, I was like, wow, I didn't know beer could taste like this.
Yeah.
Because all I knew was Natty, Bud, Keystone, Miller. You know what
Keystone,
I mean?
yeah. That's what our Key Premium was what the kids in my high school drank. The Red Rubies. Just at room temperature in the woods. And that's why I never drank. Like, I feel like that it's, drinking this stuff right here, like, it's delicious to taste it. There's a good taste to it, but like a warm Keystone Premium, come on, it ain't the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially in high school, you're just drinking in hopes to like, get tore up. You don't think it tastes good. There's no way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I did not like the taste of it in high school. I just drank to party and hang out. But yeah, getting into like the craft stuff for sure, the Bell's, the Jackie O's, those first kind of like moments of dipping my toe into it. And then getting to like college and grad school, moving here.
Yeah.
I've been seeing the plethora of it. I remember like in 2012 when I moved here, a buddy of mine, it was his birthday and he was like, hey, I want to take you to this spot. It's called Penn Brewery.
Yeah.
I'd never been. I was like, damn, this is sweet. The food was good. The beers were great. I remember I was drinking like their Pilsner and maybe like a Märzen. It was like his birthday's in November. So it's like kind of after the Oktoberfest season, but they had some of those beers still on. And I was like, wow, man, like, this is pretty damn good. And I remember thinking like, I wonder like what else is out there, Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting to think about that. Now, how long has Trace been open officially?
We've officially been open about a year and a half. Yeah. We opened, So like we opened for takeout only December 2020. We opened the tap room in February of 21.
And you guys just been ripping since.
Yeah, kind of just trying to keep up. I mean, since we went to 7 days a week, the coffee shop opened in July of 21. So since the coffee shop opened, we have been open every day.
Now, the coffee is provided by who?
Red Hawk.
Red Hawk Coffee. Delicious.
Yeah.
They're the first time I had it was at your spot. But what made you like kind of want to, be, I don't know, like a coffee bar, involve a coffee bar with it as well?
That was Dave's idea. He had been traveling throughout like the West Coast, like California and to Europe. And a lot of these bars, especially like in London, they are double beverage, half beer, half coffee. And he saw that and he was like, yeah, it's cool. Cause like a lot of folks will start with the coffee and then kind of work their way to beer, middle of the day or end of the day. And he's like, I wonder if we could try that in Pittsburgh, if Pittsburgh's ready for a beer and coffee concept.
Yeah.
I think there are some spots who do what we do pretty well. I love De Fair in the Strip District. They do like coffee, cocktails, breakfast sandwiches, beer. They do a little bit of everything, and they are like a coffee brand with other beverages.
Yeah.
Trace is like a brewery with a coffee shop inside of it.
Yeah.
So his whole thing was like, let's be like two beverages, the coffee side and the beer side, and do both really well. But, we also have like all the other drinks and the events. But the coffee side of it, and like particularly Red Hawk, I love Red Hawk. Red Hawk does all of our beans except the pour over. If you order a pour over, you're having Ghost.
Oh, Ghost Collab, is that what it is
Ghost
called?
Coffee Collab.
Ghost Coffee Collab. I've seen that on Instagram.
Yeah, they're pretty secretive, but Joe, who is one of our baristas, he's our head of coffee.
Yeah.
He is part of the Ghost team and has been incorporating Ghost beans into the rotation for the pour over.
Oh, that's awesome.
Everything else is Red Hawk. Spro, latte, drip. Yeah, I love coffee too.
Have you been into it for a while, coffee?
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite beverage. I like it more than beer. I think if somebody was like, you can only have one drink the rest of your life, what's it going to be? I would say it's going to be coffee. Like, I love beer, but I really love coffee.
Yeah, I love coffee. You're an everyday drinker?
Yes.
If you don't have coffee, do you get a headache?
A little bit, yeah. I just feel off.
Sucks.
Yeah, I drank a cup of coffee on the way here, actually. Yeah.
That's good. I had a large coffee this morning. Now, at Trace, you guys are obviously, full tilt ahead. Do you have any plans of expansion?
Yeah, we are exploring a second space, but it would just be a tap room.
Yeah.
We'll keep production in Bloomfield. The second sort of like space, or the call it a satellite or a bar, it would be offsite and it would not be in Bloomfield. I'm not even sure if like we're talking about it yet, really, but I know that it'll just be like sort of an extension of the the taproom experience.
Yeah,
where we'd probably just keep brewing in Bloomfield, throw it in kegs, and then serve that stuff offsite.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah, that makes sense.
But this wouldn't be till early 23.
Yeah. Now, for you to for you to market the beer and like kind of wholesale it out to people, is that the right terminology? Wholesaling it out to people, like where, like. Do you go beyond Pittsburgh? Like, is it beyond Pittsburgh?
Man, not really. So the word we use is distribution.
Yeah, distribution.
Or self-distro.
Yeah.
Like, self-distro is if you distribute your beer on your own. And then distro is like if you're a hitchhiker, they have distro to like Giant Eagle. Or like distros through like other companies. For Trace, like, man, to be honest with you, our canning and like keg packaging program is pretty low. Most of our beer is sold at Trace, at the tap room. So that's also where the highest level of profit margin is. But like, as far as sending beer out the door to like go to a restaurant or a bar, I know that tomorrow we're going to be selling some to the Vandal in Lawrenceville.
Okay.
And I know that there's a few bars that carry our stuff, Spirit, Froggy's. And there's just like a handful of bars that you can get a Trace beer. But to be honest, like 95% of the beer is sold on site, including cans. So we haven't been distributing it out. I think that it's a really good look from a marketing perspective to get your beer on the shelves at a Giant Eagle or other shops.
Yeah.
That just hasn't really been in our plan, only because we're limited by capacity.
Yeah.
If we brew a 10-barrel batch and we get slammed at the brewery because we have a concert or an event or a party.
You want to be able to have it there at the brewery and not have to Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's cool though too, is because you kind of keep everything in house and you don't have to worry about all that, that extra. That's interesting to think about. I was looking at the website, and you have an apprenticeship. Is that what it is?
The vocational program.
Yeah, tell me about this because I'm interested.
Yeah, it's basically just we created this program to it's a 6-month paid vocational program where you learn how to brew beer from Zach, our head brewer. So we saw this element in beer where it was just very homogenous, mostly straight, mostly white, mostly men. So this program is open to everybody. We do kind of favor minorities and women and people who are gay to apply. If they get in, they are in-house. They're with us for 6 months paid. It's $15 an hour. It's a paid vocational program. And then at the end of it, you have the skills, the know-how, and our backing to get a job in beer.
Wow.
So Dev, our first vocational brewer, he graduated, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Got a job brewing at East End.
Yeah, I met him the other day.
Yeah, you met him at the Half-Ass Beer Share.
Yep.
And then Nina, our second vocational brewer, she got a job at Necromancer in just north of Millvale in Ross Township.
Wow.
And then now Kyle, the third vocational brewer, he'll be finishing June, July. And then as he applies for brewing jobs, we'll make sure that we can talk about what he's done. He's been canning, bottling, brewing, cleaning, cellaring, dry hopping. He does everything. So he has all the skills he needs to jump in and assist a brewer,
That's amazing.
But it's cool because we're kind of batting 1,000. We've only had 2 and they both got jobs. So now with Kyle, it's pressure's on,
Pressure's on. You better get that resume, get it shaped up. Mm-hmm. Now, where does the idea of that come into play? That's cool that, again, you have a great product. You could stop at that, but to take on this other, avenue of just, teaching kind of, where does that kind of come into play at? That's awesome that you can do that.
Yeah, it was just, that was all Dave. When he told me, he's like, hey, so we're going to do the brewery, we're going to do coffee, we're going to do all this stuff, and then we're going to do a vocational program because we want to help diversify the industry. Because we would just take a look around at a beer festival or a conference or
it's a white dude. It looks like me.
Yeah, it's just it is so homogenous. So
yeah.
Dave is straight, white, dad, married, just a regular dude. And he's it'd be cool to see a future where beer is more diverse. So why don't we take the initiative and do this? Because all these openings at breweries are oh, you got to have 6 months experience, or you got to have, X number of years under your belt or something. And so we were all right, well, we'll give it to you. We'll give you 6 months experience. We'll give you pay as well. We'll just pay it out of pocket. Now we are applying to grants to open it up to more than one brewer per term.
Yeah.
Each term is 6 months and it's one person per term. But if we can land a grant to help subsidize it, that'd be dope to have 2,
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the best part about it though is these folks who come in and do this vocational program, they are more than welcome to bartend and be tip eligible as well.
Oh,
so
wow.
Kyle will be in the back brewing, kind of switch hats to front of house, and then he's tip eligible and he's making even more money and he's bartending. So
Wow.
he's actually the only person on our staff that has touched every element of the brewery, including the coffee shop. It's really remarkable. These vocational brewers pull espresso, clean kegs, dry hop beers, brew beers, serve behind the bar. They do everything. The only thing they don't do really is marketing because that's just what I do. But they certainly are helpful in telling our story.
That's really awesome.
It's wild because I was telling Kyle the other day, he and I were pouring beer offsite at Golden Age at a lager festival. And I was like, Kyle, when you're done with this, you're going to have done every single thing at Trace. And he was like, wow, I never thought about that. I've done it all, every touch point.
Yeah, I saw even on the website, it said even if you have no experience at all, you're encouraged to apply to it if you're interested. That's, it's really cool to read stuff like that and just to see that that's an opportunity that's just, right over one of our bridges.
Totally. Yeah, it's not even a college education, nothing. Dave was that's a barrier to entry. He came from a great family and he's been to school and all that, but he's there are folks out there who haven't had the chance to go to college.
Yeah.
So what if we open this up to them because they're passionate? That's the only requirement is passion. If you're passionate about wanting to make this your career, then you've already got a huge leg up and you're in.
I got to get him on here too.
Yeah.
He, my buddy actually before, I think it might even before you guys opened, but he told me about it. He was I met this guy, Dave. I don't know where he met him, but he was they're opening this brewery. This is before I liked beer at all. I was it's not my lane. I don't even want to get involved with it all. But now, obviously, he was pumped that I told him that you guys were coming on. But it's so it's awesome to be able to kind of learn about all this cool stuff that's going on. What about you? Do you have any interest in brewing?
Man, that's a good question. I would say not really. I've thought about it a little bit, but man, my biggest interest, honestly, is in front of house and marketing. It's weird to say it out loud, but yeah, people have asked me, hey man, do you brew? People, even guests have asked me, are you the brewer? I'm like, yeah, take a look at me, man. No, I'm so small. These brewers, you have to lift bags of grain and, transfer all this equipment and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not the brewer, but I do the marketing and I bartend, and I'm very happy with that. I would say, if anything, if my career evolves, it would just be more sort of beverage knowledge forward.
Yeah, knowledge. Doing it to learn the knowledge on how it's made.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would take the Cicerone exam. I would happily study and sit for that to get that certification, but I don't know that I'd want to brew.
What is that exam consist of? Because Andy was talking to me about it, but it's basically what do they call them for wine?
Sommelier.
Sommelier, yeah.
It's just that for beer. So really the exam, it goes into the two main areas of sensory are smell and taste.
Yeah.
So you have a sensory exam, and you actually have to detect off flavors, detect styles, just really kind of train your palate and your nose. When you said that you first tried Two Hearted and hated it, that's cool to hear, because that means your palate was trained in a different way. Now, if I cracked open a Two Hearted and you sipped it, you wouldn't pull back immediately. You'd be like, all right, that's piney, that's bitter, that's sticky, that's kind of sappy and kind of dank. You would pick that up and understand it. And part of the Cicerone exam is understanding these flavors and what makes a style a style.
That's it's a wild idea to even do it. How many do you have to do a lot of these different things? They will just give you a beer and you have to identify the off notes in there.
Yeah, well, I think there are levels. There's a level 1, level 2, and a master. So I think as you get higher up in the levels, it's definitely going to get harder.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and in fact, before COVID hit, Beerport had some training classes. They called it flight school. And I remember cool name for sure. Yeah, because they would actually bring out beers, and brewers would come and talk about, you're going to taste this, you should smell this, you should be, feeling this. And
that would be useful for sure, because it's you could say all these words, dank, hazy, sticky, juicy, but it's you could say that, but I have I don't know why you're saying this. Pour a little bit of that more in your cup for me for a second.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. This is the hop royalty.
Now,
New England IPA.
I want to take a sip of this, and I want you to describe this the correct way, if that makes sense to you. So, whenever I smell this, I feel like my smell isn't really honed in yet, because it all kind of smells very citrusy, but I don't really I can't really distinguish the other things that I'm smelling in here.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a berry, melon, fruity, citrusy is definitely what I get too. Yeah. I don't know if I kind of lean on Zach because he has a really developed palate, but yeah, I'm getting some of the citrus, and then on the tongue, you should be getting a bit of a juicy, floral. When I say juicy. Sorry, I'm burping. I mean actual juice.
Yeah, it tastes like juice.
Yeah,
a very the first time I was able to kind of distinguish a juicy taste was I had Subtropic from Hitchhiker, and it tastes like a juice. It tastes very different than something else. But whenever I taste this, whenever people say it's danky, what does that mean?
So if someone says a beer is dank, literally the closest parallel synonym is going to be weed.
Yeah.
So you should, on the nose, certain hops express a very dank
weedy smell,
and taste. And we use the word dank to describe it as that, versus something more floral or juicy or citrusy. They can also be complementary. This one we do on the label write spicy dank, because there's a little bit of that spiciness that comes through. One of the hops that's in this beer is called African Queen, and it's grown in Africa. So the reason the beer is called Hop Royalty is because of that one hop, African Queen. We bought it in an allotment enough to brew. I think we only use it in this beer. The other hops in this beer are Mosaic and Amarillo, which are very, very conventional, commonly used hops in American IPAs. But that particular hop expresses a different flavor and aroma. And that's kind of like it. It's to be honest, if you lined up 2 or 3 of these side by side, it would be difficult even for me to like really dig into it hard. But I know that like when you mentioned like Josh Getzoff, like he was like, I love IPA. I think he would love this. I think this speaks to like that type of drinker.
Oh yeah, it's very approachable because there's some IPAs that like I could tell that I'm not a big fan of them, but I almost feel like that I'm doing something wrong because I know that there's such like a big name place. Like everyone tells me about Dancing Gnome. Okay. And I know they make great stuff, but like I have not found a beer that is like, my favorite from them because they don't taste as like, fruity to me. It's almost like a more complex, kind of a bitter taste to it. Mm-hmm. And it's just not what I gravitate towards. I know it's great, but it's just like not what I gravitate towards. But it's interesting to just try to like, go through it all. That's why I love the beer share so much because, you buy a 4-pack and you're spending $16 to $20. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But that beer share was just like an opportunity to like really just like have a chance to taste all these things. I was talking to Josh about it. He was very interested. He might try to come to the next one, but that'd
be awesome.
It would be cool because like, that's why I asked Cottle and all them. I'm like, is this kind of like a secret club that like, is it welcome for new people? And he was like, you can invite whoever you want. He was like, just tell them to bring some beer. Then there's the wing share that's coming up.
Yeah, Trace. Yeah.
I got an invite to that. I'm very excited for that.
Thank you.
That's what, the 12th or 13th?
Yeah, I think it's Sunday, June 12th. Yeah, Cottle texted me this morning and was like, hey, can we do it at Trace? And I checked our calendars. He just wanted a Sunday in June and that one was open.
Well, I'm excited about it. Now, for you to be where you are right now with Trace, like, what are your goals? As far, obviously you're just one of a whole team, but speaking for yourself, like, if you could kind of, I don't want you to speak for everyone. What are the goals of Trace?
Man, I think that the biggest goal there is probably just inclusion and this sense of everyone is welcome. I mean, we try so hard to put a little bit of effort towards drawing in this community and this crowd that feels comfortable and that feels safe, that feels like it's for them. It's tricky and it's hard to do and it's hard to pull it off exactly right. But I would say that like from a beverage perspective, we definitely want to continue brewing diverse styles. From a space and experience perspective, we want to be like hospitable, clean, welcoming, all of that. And I think that the main goal is just to continue finding our rhythm with these different events and programming and activating the space in a way such that, it definitely feels like that like third place, that it's not home and it's not work, but it's like that third spot where you can go to and you can really kind of like, just feel welcome and be yourself. Yeah. Express yourself however you do. And we try to like, because we're doing all these different things, like the upscale, like beer dinner, which is like, a plated hospitality, like very coursed prefix dinner versus slappers and bangers. It's going to be like a huge trap hip hop party versus drag brunch, which draws in the gay community. We change the menu. We have mimosas. We have like all these different things that talk to them. So like, I'm trying to like think about it as like a dial on like a knob. And as that knob stops at every index, it's speaking to like a different type of person. And there will always be the beer community because we are a brewery. Yeah. So that's that underlying foundation that like, I know that the moment when I came in today, I was like, yo, Chad, like I haven't put these in the menu yet. I'm going to after this. And I'm sure the first tweet in the door will be this guy, David. He just loves us, and he comes in for cans and he gets beer to go and goes home and he drinks it and posts about it and he's like, yep, I like this and I like that. And I know that speaks to him, but I know that there's other people that we are not speaking to, or we are in like a different way. Not through beer,
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. That's cool to hear. How many different beers does Trace have? Do you know offhand?
I think grand total, I think we have done 65 brands total. Wow. That's since we've opened. Yeah. As of right now, sitting here with you, I think there are like 10 on right now. Some are new and some are repeated. These are both repeated. This one we did in March 21. This one we did in February 21. And we brought back. But as far as like new brands, yeah, there are some newer ones on. And trying to think. because there's the Grisette, the West Coast IPA, both doubles, the Italian Pilsner, the German Lager, the Schwarz beer. Trying to like go off of memory, but yeah, there's at least 10 or 11 styles on right now.
Wow. What is the flagship? Do you have a flagship?
The only flagship, that's a good question. It took us a long time to get there, but the flagship is the Keller beer. That's our German pale lager.
Now, as a brewery establishes their flagship beer, I feel like can you have more than one?
Yeah, I think some do. I think, you talked to Andy last week, and I feel like Bane is their flagship. It's a hazy IPA.
Yeah.
But they've got other styles that I know that they do pretty consistently. One of them that's my favorite is 15th and Canal, and that's the intersection that they sit at, is at 15th and Canal, and that's a pale ale. I love that beer.
I don't know if I've had that yet.
You'll have to, next time you talk to Andy, see when they're brewing it next. But I think that... So a good example is Old Thunder. Old Thunder, they opened 6 days after we opened, which is hilarious that like all these breweries are opening at the same time. And we love those guys. Old Thunder came out the gate and they're like, hey, we're going to have 2 flagship beers. One is a lager. It's called 340 because that's their address, 340 Freeport Road. So 340 is a lager. And the other flagship is called False Kingdom and it's a hazy IPA. Both of them, they do either year round or damn near year round.
Wow.
And that's really cool because that like the lager crowd and the IPA crowd are 2, kind of different crowds sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we're going to do 2 house beers. The rest of them are going to rotate seasonally. Yeah. We opened with no flagship. Keller beer became extremely popular with the staff and just our guests and the crowd. It's also a very approachable lager. You can just like slam it with dinner. You can slam it with friends. You can slam it during a concert. It's just
I haven't developed my lager taste yet. I just my guy across the street, 7 years old, veteran. He's the man. Okay, we're great friends. It could be 8 a.m. He has a Bud Light in his hand. So I had Andy brought over True, which was a Pilsner. So I was like, I'll try this, and Bud Light, obviously. So I was like, I'm going to go over and give him an upscale, version of it. And he was drinking it yesterday. And it's like, I'm not a big fan of just Pilsners or lagers yet. I just feel like that they're good. It's, I like more of a flavor profile than that, I feel.
Yeah.
But, but people that like them love them and they just want to stick with them.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to Andy, he was like, I'd like to just be able to just drink beers. Like, I want a Pilsner or lager like that you could just keep drinking. And it makes sense because, some of these that are like, 10%, 8%, you get wrecked. Like
For sure.
I drink
you can have like one.
Yeah. Especially me. Like I literally could have counted all these on one hand. So I'll get a beer from someone, like my guy at work gave me one. It was called like Parks and Rec or whatever, but it was like 12%. And I knew that like, if I drink that, I'm going to be toast. But
yeah.
The beer world.
The lager stuff is funny because, it's very trendy right now, like this year. I think that I love lager. I know that like if somebody were to ask me what I love to like drink, I love Saison and I love lager. And all these lager festivals, it's funny because these folks walk around and they're able to try everything because you're not going to get too wasted.
Yeah.
We poured at Golden Age on Saturday, and I think a lot of folks were like, "Yep, tried everything." Like we tried 20 breweries today. I was like, "Yeah, I'm impressed."
Yeah.
You couldn't do that at like a barrel age festival or an IPA festival.
Yeah.
It would just be bombed, But it's funny because if as you develop your palate and you think about like that like kind of dry, crackery, crisp, like that flavor, it isn't going to punch you in the face. It's pretty subtle.
Yeah.
But a nice clean lager, a good person to talk to is actually Buzzy. Buzzy has been like really getting into lagers lately. And he dropped some off at Trace that I tried that were like, it was the best lager I've ever had in my life. It was called Woolly Pig.
Oh,
it was from Ohio.
I've heard all about it.
Yeah, he talks about it nonstop, and he gave me one. I was like, Buzzy, this is the best lager I've had in my life.
Yeah.
And how did you find this? It's like from where I'm from. And he's like, yeah, I just found it online, drove out there and picked it up.
I mean, I know that there was other people that were involved with beer before him, but like as people that I know, he was the first person that I've ever seen with a craft beer in his hand that introduced me to trying one.
Yep.
And it had to be that Bell's Two Hearted that I thought tasted like hell. But I've not had one since then, but I'm gonna have to grab one and try it and see what I like different now.
Yeah.
But
the good news is if you find yourself like at a Pirates game or a Steelers game, I guarantee you it's on. Like I'm guarantee you, like you can get that. It's pretty widely distributed. So just catch yourself at a game and be like, hey, you know what? When you're standing at the bar, you could definitely get a two-hearted.
I'll definitely get one next time, see how it goes. Okay, now that we kind of navigated through, the beer talk, ending segment that I do with all my guests is a segment called Desert Island Questions.
Okay.
Desert Island Questions, whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die. So, first category is 3 movies to take on a desert island.
All right, word. So these are the 3 movies that's your whole repository to pull from when you're on the island.
Yep, you have a 12-inch TV with an integrated DVD player, and you get 3 DVDs, and that's it for the rest of your life.
Cool. All right, so I would say, let me think for 1 second here. Yeah, one of them, no doubt, is going to be the first Fast and the Furious. I love that series.
Got it right over there, the limited edition.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right on.
Big fan.
Yeah, huge fan. R.I.P. Paul Walker. I love that series. I would say the very first one, the whole series is fun and it's evolved a lot, but that first one's coming with me for sure. I'd say another movie. Man, this is a tough question. Gosh, let me see here. All right, another one that would come with me would have to be, man, I've always been a big fan of, back in 1999, there was a movie that came out called American Beauty.
Oh, yeah.
Ended up getting nominated for a ton of Academy Awards. The internal monologues of Kevin Spacey's character are incredible.
They really are.
I think it's a super well-written movie. It's
been a long time since I watched it. I watched it whenever I was younger, and then I remember watching it a couple years ago thinking it really is incredible. Obviously people hate Kevin Spacey, but the movie is great.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he kind of ended up not being a good dude, but as far as that era, that time period, portraying American suburbia as this, the word they use is ordinary. They're like, oh, I don't want to be ordinary. It comes up over and over that theme of ordinary and the fear of being ordinary. And we all have our own quirky, weird intricacies. You, your wife, your family, like all of us do. And I think American Beauty really put that in the forefront. And that's been one of my all-time favorites. So I would say Fast and the Furious 1, American Beauty, and then if I had to pick a third one, man, this is a much, much, much more modern movie, but it's one that I've watched twice and has so many twists and turns. It's Parasite.
Oh.
Have you seen it?
It's absolutely amazing.
Isn't that amazing? I don't want to ruin it for your listeners, but if folks listening haven't seen it, it's great. It's in Korean, I think.
I didn't expect it to be. Honestly, I just brushed it over, and after hearing every single person talk about how amazing it was, I was like, all right, I guess I'll give it a shot. And I will wake up early on weekends, 4:30, and I'm just up until my wife wakes up. I just can't sleep. I remember sitting Indian style in my apartment living room watching Parasite and thinking one of the best movies I've seen in a long, long time.
I think it's a masterpiece.
And I think I went into it with the bar so low because I was just it was just, everyone was talking it up. So I'm just if people talk up everything great, it's kind of like Game of Thrones. I've heard so much good stuff about it. I just have no desire to watch it. Mm-hmm. But I watched Parasite and it was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you got to see it. And I watched it just during COVID, right? It was nothing was going on. I was like, whoa, this is good. Then I remember going home after everyone was vaccinated and I went to visit my parents and, they're Asian, we're Indian, Burmese.
Yeah.
And they were looking for something to do one night. And I was like, hey, I'm home. We're just chilling. Why don't have you guys seen Parasite? They're like, no, they ended up loving it. They're like,
really?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, it just it portrays that Asian family, parasitically doing its thing. And yeah, man, just I don't want to ruin it for your listeners, but I think that it takes some pretty heavy twists and turns.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would love to watch it again. And I think it won a few awards too.
Yeah, it definitely did. I've been trying to get my wife to watch it, but she just doesn't pay attention to movies. She's just on her phone. Terrible.
Yeah. That's one that you got. Well, because I don't speak Korean. It's not even in English.
Yeah, I know.
You have to pay attention.
Have to pay attention. But honestly, there's so many great Korean movies. Are you a fan of horror movies?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Train to Busan?
No.
It's the greatest zombie movie ever made. I'm a big zombie guy. I love Night of the Living Dead and Pittsburgh and Dawn of the Dead and everything like that.
Yeah.
But this is even better than 28 Days Later. It's It's an incredible movie. Very, very incredible.
Is it older?
It probably came out like, I'm going to guess, could be completely wrong, like 6, 7, 8 years ago. But
Okay, word.
the kid from Parasite is in there. And I watched Parasite first, and then my brother's a big anime fan, talking this movie up to me for so long. And it's just a certain level of commitment you have to have if it's in subtitles. So you just have to be ready to, like, you know, be committed and watch it and, you know, do that. So I had to wait until I was committed to watching it, but it was absolutely unreal. But yeah, in subtitles, zombie movie, just absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
Really, really good. You should watch it immediately.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I love horror and thriller and zombie. And if I had like an honorable mention on your list,
Yeah.
there's a movie that is so gnarly. It came out, I think, in 2005. It's called The Devil's Rejects.
Oh,
and it was
big
a
fan.
Rob Zombie movie. It's
I actually
crazy.
have signed posters from him.
Really?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
both
see
of them.
your decor down here in your studio, and you have a bunch of like cool art. That was the sequel to House of
House of a Thousand Corpses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, it's sort of like, I guess to sum it up in like one tweet, it's just gnarly, mindless killing.
Yep.
But it is like bloody and gory and weird
And everything I
evil.
want.
Yeah. It's really, if you're okay with like that,
Yeah.
it's really something that's like worth watching.
Did you like House of a Thousand Corpses?
I did.
See,
I liked
I
it. It was hard to like
Yeah.
pay attention the whole way through though.
People either love it or they hate it because it's so weird and just
Yeah.
bizarre.
Devil's Rejects you could follow. Also, the
Yeah.
soundtrack is incredible.
It really is. That's one thing that's slept on by people.
Yeah.
It is. It's very good.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie's doing a Monsters movie right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
I don't know how that'll be. That'll be good though, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Word. I need to watch the third part of that trilogy because he rounds it out.
Yeah, what was that one called? That was
Like
called
Three Kings or something like that.
Oh,
Or-
yeah.
I forget.
Who knows? I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
watch that too.
Yeah, I want to check that out. But yeah, I would say like those three movies, and then if I had an honorable mention, yeah, I'd throw Devil's Rejects in there because it's evil and it really brings out like that gnarly side of you.
Definitely something to watch for the rest of your life on a stranded desert island over
Yeah.
and over. Okay, second category. So I usually ask people 3 books. You're more than welcome to answer 3 books, but I would like to know 3 of your favorite beers that you're not affiliated with, if you could choose them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Wow. 3 beers.
Yeah,
Dude.
like specific.
Yeah. Very good question, man. And as I think before we were, live recording, we were talking about me being a guest on other podcasts, but they've all been beer podcasts, which
Yeah.
is great. And we always talk about beer. I would say, all right, so one of them for sure would be Iron City Lager, and particularly Iron City, not Icy Light. Like Icy Light's fine.
Yeah.
I'll be out with like my partner Ashley, or we'll be out drinking, and we'll see Icy Light, and that's the only option. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll have that. But when Iron City is on, I love Iron City. I think it is such a well done, like macro lager, if you want to call it that.
I don't think I've ever had one in my life.
Wow, man, dude, it's fantastic. And this is coming from a guy who like loves lager, and I've drank a lot of just like macro lager growing up. But I remember one time, man, there was like this like ad agency, and they were like pitching work to Iron City, so they brought in a bunch of people to do a blind taste test. And the blind taste test was Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light, and Iron City, and they poured it into these 4 plastic cups, and you had to like blind taste test just to see which is your favorite. Of course, they're hoping that you say Iron City, or the one that is Iron City.
Yeah.
And I love Iron City, and I was there were 23 people in the room, and I got all 4 of them right because I knew I could isolate the flavors of Coors Light, which is a little bit like, I don't want to say watery, but it has like a more tinny, watery flavor on one end. The other end was Iron City because it has the most flavor, and the middle 2 were Bud and Miller. And I had to like just go off of like a little bit of that mouthfeel, and I ended up like getting it. And I was like, man, like I not only do I love Iron City, but I love it enough to like blind taste test and know it amongst others in its like peer family. I love that beer so much.
I'm gonna have to get one.
It's awesome. Another beer that I love, man, this is such a good question because I feel like working in it, you end up trying a lot of things. You're like, oh, that was good, or it was memorable, but then you're like, drunk.
Yeah, that's why I asked like Cotto and Andy. I'm like, give me some stuff to try that I don't even know of.
Yeah, man. Okay, so let's see here. Yes, I know. So there was a beer during the height of COVID when a lot of stuff was just in cans that the folks at Dancing Gnome did. Dancing Gnome does a nice job of doing these petite IPAs. And by petite IPA, I mean it's a hazy IPA that has way lower alcohol. And they did a 2.8% petite IPA called Sassafras. It was super light, but super flavorful. I'll never forget that beer. It was the most memorable, beer I've ever drank. Like, I love Iron City because you can just slam them. I always keep some in my fridge. Sassafras was a one-off they did as part of a series about trees.
Yeah.
They were celebrating trees in Pittsburgh. And, I know I've talked about that beer before to people, but the fact that I was sitting there drinking a beer with only 2% alcohol and the flavor of like what we just drank, this hop royalty, which is 7%. And it had that haze and that character and that floral expression of like flavor. That's a beer that I will never forget till the day I die.
Sassafras.
It was called Sassafras. I don't know if they're going to do it again. They might. They've done stuff in a similar vein, but they haven't done that one.
I've never heard of that. Like a petite
IPA.
with low alcohol. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Whenever I saw that Fat Gary was only like a 4, I was like kind of pumped about it because, I don't want to just have, I usually am just like pretty conscious of having one beer and only having one beer because I'm not really, I don't have my barometer set of, I'm not accustomed to everything yet. So once I saw that was only 4, I was like, I could have 2 of these. Those will be fine.
Yeah.
But I like the lower end stuff.
For sure. Yeah, me too. If it's 5 or lower or 4 and lower, like Fat Gary, I think comes in at 3.9, which is super low.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's super flavorful. A lot of people that you might talk to just in Pittsburgh love that beer. It's got a very, very, strong, pull amongst people who live in Pittsburgh. It's iconic.
Okay.
So I'd say Iron City is 1, Sassafras is 2. For the third one, I got to go like in a whole different direction. And I'm going to shout out there's a beer from Strange Roots that they do called Godenacht. And Godenacht, I believe, is Dutch for good night. And it's like a wild fermented sour ale that it's pretty boozy. It's like 9.5%.
Yeah.
But it's super tart. So what happens is when you drink it, you just get that like puckered up feeling.
You like a sour?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, yeah. I think that, the only problem is as I get older, man, like it's hard to like drink a lot of it.
Yeah. But
I do like that expression of flavor, and I love knowing that it is like wild ferment, sort of like a time-stamped kind of beer. I love that stuff. Yeah, I'm stoked to see that like Strange Roots does it. We do it at Trace. There are a few breweries locally doing stuff in that like kind of funky open ferment, let the temperature and the yeast do its thing.
Yeah, just let it be.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Sure. Is there any? This might be a weird question, but is there any beers that you guys did at Trace that like just didn't go off well? That you were just like, all right, we're not going to make these anymore.
Yeah, there was one. There was an IPA we did. I remember we were kind of joking about it. It was called 10 Mile Ride, and it was a IPA brewed with Sultana. It's a type of hop, and we were joking at the brewery because it like all the other IPAs like sold, and that one just stayed in the walk-in for like months.
Really?
And it just for some reason didn't quite hit. It tasted good. It had a nice can design. We liked it, but for some reason it just kind of like stuck around for a while. And that was funny. And then the other beer that like Zach felt like he needed a tweak was the West Coast IPA. So we talk about Bill's Two Hearted.
Yeah.
We did our take on that. It's called Western Sap. We brewed it in 2021 and it came out and I thought it was great. And Zach was like, man, we missed the mark. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? And he's like, yeah, it just didn't quite come out the way I wanted it to. I'm going to like change it up. So he waited a whole year.
Yeah.
Last week we brought back Western Sap, but it's like version 2.0. It's like all, redone.
Yeah.
It is really, really good. It's better, but he was like, this is what I was going for. I wanted this flavor, this expression of the hop. Like he just like changed up a few things in the recipe, kept the name the same, but he was really self-conscious and felt like it didn't quite hit last year in 2021.
Yeah.
But it still sold out in like 6 weeks. It sold really fast, but he changed it up this year and brought it back. And I was like, cool, man. I think it'll do just as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't beat yourself up over it, but
that's what tells you you're working with a professional.
Yeah.
People that are the biggest critics of themselves.
For sure. That's Zach. He's a bit of a perfectionist, but those two beers kind of like didn't quite hit, but it wasn't the end of the world. It was just kind of like a little, like a minor, like we took a ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you do you consider yourself a control freak?
A little bit in terms of copy. Yeah, I try not to make any typos. I try to make sure that just from like a copy and strategy perspective, I am. But other stuff I let slide.
Yeah.
In terms of like visual, just because we have so much shit going on that like I have to just keep up.
As someone who works in this, like, are you someone who like preps out weeks in advance, or are you someone that kind of just like adapts to, day to day? How do you like to work?
It's a little bit of both. So I would say in terms of like the day to day of like managing, so it's like the photography and the design and the illustration, some of that does have to be done beforehand. So if I'm bringing on our photographer, Julie, she gets paid monthly. So she's on a retainer. She'll come in, she'll shoot, we have her time. And then I get the creative assets and I can kind of queue up exactly what's going to go live when. That's more me kind of controlling the process.
Yeah.
Something happens where it's like, hey, we got to get this up now live. I'll just do it. Like I'll shoot it. I'll take care of it. It's cool. But it's like a little bit of like a push and a pull, because some of the heavier lift elements of Trace, like when we do a big festival, the Skate Fest we did, the Pride Festival in June, Oktoberfest, those are pretty pre-planned and thought through. Other stuff, it's kind of like flying by the seat of my pants, just trying to like drink out of a fire hose.
That's good though. It probably keeps it fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, third category: 3 CDs to take with you on a desert island. You get a CD player, anti-skip, and only 3 CDs for the rest of your life.
Oh, nice. I'm glad we got the anti-skip in case I hit a bump.
Yeah,
but
in case you hit a bump.
Yeah. So thankfully, I do have an answer for you, because I thought about this because it was so weird. All 3 of my favorite albums literally all turned 20 last year. They all
20?
came out in 01. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I grew up just listening to like basically rock and heavy metal.
Yeah.
So the first one would definitely be Lateralis from Tool. It dropped in May of 2001. I thought it was like a masterpiece. I don't know if you listen to Tool at all.
A little bit. I'm not like a crazy, but I know they're hitters.
Yeah, progressive rock band, like crazy talented. So Lateralis from Tool would definitely be one. Number 2 would probably be Toxicity from System of a Down.
Man, you might be the first person that has mentioned System of a Down on here. And like, come on now. What an amazing, it's just slept on band.
Yeah.
One band I never saw live that like, kills me. Have you saw them live?
I've seen them live twice. They are still touring. You still have a chance.
I know, but they never come around here.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You'll have to probably travel to either Cleveland or Philly or Columbus.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to make the trip,
I think the closest that I saw last time they were coming was Detroit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely make a trip for that. Amazing though.
Yeah, it's a shame they don't play in Pittsburgh. They do a lot of touring in Europe as well, but I would say that album really reshaped the way we think about nu metal, dropping, a week before 9/11 and, in this like really interesting time period for like the United States.
Was it a week before 9/11?
Came out on September 4th. Yeah.
Wow.
And then it got pulled after 9/11 and then they brought it back out because it was just
I remember whenever they brought it back, because I remember my buddy's mother was like very hesitant about him listening to everything because like it was just because of the media. It's like they were saying some heavy stuff, but it wasn't like, crazy.
Yeah, it wasn't wild. Yeah, I mean, it was serious. I mean, it was like thought through for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Toxicity album, I listened to it on the regular to this day. It definitely like that's number 2 for sure. So like Tool, Lateralis, no doubt. It's a great album. Toxicity by System of a Down. And then the third one would have to be came out in, I believe it was September of 2001, and that would be Iowa by Slipknot.
Wow, that's a good one.
Huge fan of Slipknot. Like they're my favorite band. That album is just sheer rage.
Oh yeah,
like they really lost
You can't
their
beat
minds.
it.
You can't. I mean, that is the highest expression of rage and anger.
I was Corey Taylor for Slipknot from Slipknot for Halloween in probably 2012.
Oh wow!
I think I still got the mask right in there. It was pretty heavy. I loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like as a young kid, seeing them with the masks and like just beating the kegs with bats, and you're just like, this is shit that like maybe I'm not supposed to be loving as much as I do, but it made you feel independent. It made you feel like that it was all right to just like kind of be weird.
Yeah, for sure. They lean into that for sure. Yeah. Their band's progression is funny because they sort of like came out as a band right when like Woodstock 99 was happening and they were not included. And that is so funny to me that they were, achieving mainstream success.
Yeah.
Were not invited to Woodstock because they were too crazy.
Yeah.
And they are still like number one to this day.
I know, it's
in that
wild.
genre, right? Like their career has like spanned
Still as relevant as it is as they are now as they were back then. It's pretty wild to think about that.
Yeah.
Are you someone who, do you go to a lot of shows?
Yeah.
Have you been to some since COVID happened?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. More recently, yeah.
Is it weird for you? I mean, it was strange, definitely going back to a concert after not seeing one for 2 years.
Yeah, man. For sure. Yeah. I went to I've been to a bunch, but the one that I felt like the most sort of like exposed or like just like a tight area was I went to a hip hop show in Philly. I went and saw Baby Keem.
Oh, wow.
In November at this very old historic theatrical venue I think it was in Old City. And I was in New York because I was speaking at a conference and I took the train back down to Philly to hit Baby Keem. And I'm 35. I was for sure the oldest person at the show because all these young folks were like getting down. They were loving it. They had their phones out. They were jamming. They were dancing. And I was like, wow. And it was so packed.
Yeah.
And Keem was at least an hour and a half late, which is totally cool.
Yeah.
He really got the crowd going, built up that buzz. So we're just in there drinking beers, hanging out, standing around, waiting. And I'm taking a look around wow, man, this is pretty gnarly in a post-COVID sense of I'm just standing here with
yeah, it's weird.
Hundreds of 20-year-olds,
It's definitely strange. Okay. We got all 3 CDs. Yeah. Toxicity, Slipknot,
Tool. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Those are good choices.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's a third category? So we got 3. Yeah. 3. So, third to last question. Third to last question is something called the death row meal. So, death row meal is whenever, have you ever read them articles about, people getting put to death? They get one last meal, whatever they want. What would this be for you? You get to pick an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert.
Oh, nice. Wow. All right, let's see here. So, for an appetizer, man, will be, honestly, I got to go with, I'm a huge fan of all the small plates that are offered at Umami. Have you been to Umami in Lawrenceville?
I have not been there yet.
Man, they do an interesting menu because if you sit at the bar or at a table, they have smaller stuff, some bigger stuff, but it's meant to be pretty small and shareable.
Yeah.
I would have to start my last meal with probably one of the chicken on a stick or the pork on a skewer from Umami. It's these small low price snackable items that they just grill over that open spit. That's the open concept kitchen. I would start with one of those. And honestly, I'm not picky. I think the chicken is great. The pork is great. I would start with a light bite from Umami, prepared how they prepare it. They're awesome.
I got to get there.
I think you would love it, man. I think it's definitely a gem. About a week ago, a friend of mine from West Virginia visited Pittsburgh, and I was like, man, I really want to take you to Umami. And I took him. And when he went home that Sunday night, he texted me. He was like, that was the best part of the trip.
I know. So many people talk it up, and I'm just I need to get down there.
Yeah, it's worth it for sure. It's worth it for a nice night out for you and your wife. Yeah.
Last place we went, it was either going to be there or Gaijin.
Yeah, word.
Have you been there?
I haven't yet. I want to go.
Amazing. Absolutely just breathtaking there. But that's what I like doing is I like trying to cross off me and my wife. We try to go to one nice dinner a month and then one sort of event. We did a bouquet making class, something like that. I'm going to have to, I don't know why I missed the pierogi making class, but I'm going to have to keep tabs on everything going on over there because sounds right up my alley.
I think you would love it. Yeah, it's just if she brings all the materials and it's ticketed and you just have your spot and she kind of walks you through it for sure. It's awesome. So definitely the Umami small plate. I'd follow that up with there's a spot just south of Pittsburgh. It's in Dormont called Moonlit.
Yeah, the smash burgers.
Have you had it?
Yeah, I have.
Dude, I think they're doing one of the, or if not the best burger in the city right now.
I think it's arguable, but I like it. I don't dislike it, but
do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I think my favorite burger right now to this day is going to have to be Cinderlands.
Oh, theirs is great. The diner burger. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's
really
pretty
that's
wild.
your favorite.
I think it's either going to be a tie between that. Streets on Carson has a really good burger. They have a new burger I have not tried yet called the chopped cheese. It's on my list, but I just went to Cinderlands not long ago for Buzzy's DJing, and he talked it up pretty heavy. So I was like, I'll get this burger. He always tells me everything's the best. So I tried it and I was pretty blown away by it. But
it's awesome.
Andy also told me a place called the Oak something.
Oh, Oak Hill Post.
Yeah, Oak Hill Post.
Yeah, I
he
need to
talked
get down
up that
there.
place too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of burgers.
Yeah, same. I
didn't dislike Moonlit at all. I just I thought that there were some other ones that have some shine on there.
That's fair. I didn't know that. Yeah, you tried so many because I've had a few. I haven't had Oak Hill Post. Moonlit stood out to me because I was just like, I remember following them during their pop up days. So they'd pop up at Butter Joint, they'd pop up at the station, they'd pop up at these different spots before they got their actual spot.
Yeah,
and it was kind of hard to you had to kind of follow them and like know where they were going to be and how the service methodology worked. It was all pre-orders and all that. That would be my main course for sure.
Okay,
after my umami small plate, I think that the Moonlit Smash Burger is definitely one of the more unique burger concepts.
Their sauce is really, really great.
It's awesome, man.
It is
simple,
it's
but the Cinderlands burger is awesome as well. I love that stuff. I've had it many times.
Yeah, I got to go down and have it again.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then you said the third course is dessert.
Yeah.
Oh man. Let's see. So I would say, man, like a few years ago before the pandemic hit, I was at this event. There's an ice cream shop in New York City called Oddfellows, and they did a pop-up in Pittsburgh. The guy who runs it paired up with Superior Motors to do this like ice cream dinner where every course came out with a scoop of his sort of like particular ice cream that was like made against that dish. And I was like, yo, these are really, really incredible
Is it like
flavors.
savory ice cream and stuff
Yeah,
too?
some of it was savory too. So I would finish off before I, get put to death with Oddfellows ice cream. In any flavor. There was like a pistachio, there was some like butter pecan, there was some definitely more savory leaning flavors. And I was just like, wow, I know that they have a pretty big following in New York and like they get, published in like all these magazines, but I just went into it like, let me just try your stuff. And he, the chef or the ice cream maker, happened to be there talking about it. And I was like, wow, this is really special.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer for sure. I had one savory ice cream. It was like, I think it was jalapeno flavored, and it was really great. It was interesting to have that.
Wow. Was it in Pittsburgh?
I don't remember. I think it was in Portland whenever we were out there. I think it was at a nicer place out there. It was at a Mexican spot out there, and they came out with, I think it was a tostada with, I want to say it was a tostada with pulled pork and then a jalapeno scoop ice cream on there. And I was kind of like, it's almost like whenever you see a burger with like peanut butter on it and you're like, I don't know about that, but ends up being just bomb. Very, very good.
That's awesome.
Okay, second to last question, most telling question probably is if you get ready to go on a road trip, you get to go to a gas station and pick one last snack. What's your snack?
Oh man, it would be a Slim Jim.
Oh, are you a Slim Jim person?
Yeah, no doubt. I love Slim Jims. Or any kind of jerky, to be honest. I know Slim Jim is like the mass manufactured jerky, but yeah, I'll snap into a Slim Jim right now. Yeah.
I can't remember. Someone recently picked Slim Jims, and I was like, I can't remember the last time I picked I've eaten a Slim Jim, but I can't remember who said that. I don't remember who it was. Getzoff or maybe someone before him, but I was like a Slim Jim. That was the last thing I would think. But I'm gonna have to get one tomorrow. Just now that you said it.
What would your gas station snack be?
I don't know. It switches. Some days I'm like a sweet guy. Some days I'm a savory guy. If I'm a sweet guy, if I'm feeling like I'm usually a chocolate guy. If I'm a chocolate guy, I would go with like almost like the Rocher chocolates. I like those things. Kit Kat's great, but I'm also a peach ring guy. But if I'm feeling savory, I like a kettle cooked chip. Almost like a jalapeno, salt and vinegar, something like that.
Yeah, those hit the spot. Yeah, no, I'm still going to stay with Slim Jim, but it's good to hear what others
it's good
like.
to hear. Okay, last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, man. Wow, that's a good question. It's funny that earlier you mentioned Corey Taylor because he definitely comes to mind. But
You a big Stone Sour fan?
yeah, huge. Yeah, I was sad when they split.
Honestly, that's a great song. Through the Glass, Looking at You Through the Glass. You know what that is?
Yeah, for sure. That's off their second record. Sorry. Yeah, I remember that one for sure. Yeah, man, I would have to go with because it propelled me to move to Pittsburgh and go to grad school and think about like just life differently. I would say Barack Obama. I would love to like sit down and have lunch or dinner with Obama.
Yeah.
He was extremely inspirational for a lot of like young people of color who like wanted to dip their toe into politics or policy. When I applied to grad school, I only applied to the top 5 schools in the country. I applied to Harvard, Georgetown, Stanford, Duke, and Carnegie Mellon. And when I got into Carnegie Mellon, I was like, this is what I want to do because I have the language background, I have the writing background. I was so inspired by Obama because when he got elected, it was 2008. I was a junior.
Yeah.
And I was like just doing journalism and running. But people kept telling me like you could do something in that realm. And so I've just like kept like, following him and like seeing the way he was handling DC and all of that. And I would definitely like, now that he's like no longer president, just like a regular dude, it would be dope to sit down and have a beer or like have lunch with him and just pick his brain a bit because like, I think he is just honestly like an extremely intelligent person, even like objectively speaking, separate from politics. Like,
yeah, even out of politics, I never was someone who followed along. I was stereotypical, just did not give a shit in school, so I didn't know much. But as an adult, I look back. I started keeping in touch with politics back whenever all the crazy shit happened in like 2016, obviously. But I go back and I look at like his speeches that he gave and like just him in interviewing and how just like, leaps and bounds above everyone else he was, just the way he spoke and like, just the intelligence that exudes from him. But that's a really great answer, especially now being out of office and being removed for a little bit of time to just sit down and have a conversation like now after he was kind of like stepped away. It would be great.
Yeah, I think it'd be awesome. Yeah, he has this like chameleon like ability to sort of like talk to anyone. Yeah. I think as you continue with this podcast and you talk to folks from different backgrounds, different industries, Obama has some of that as well. He would sit down with, economic advisors, fucking like political advisors, donors, like anybody, restaurant people, anybody in the world. And you felt like comfortable talking to him. And I think that like that ability to communicate so effectively and like you said, really well spoken.
Yeah.
I would love to just like sit down and talk to, I would kind of be like, oh shit. I'd be like, when you sat down with Sally Wig and you felt like nervous, I'd feel hella nervous.
Sally. Yeah. I was very nervous. Are you, do you know who Mark Maron is?
Mark Maron?
Mark Maron. He is a comedian, journalist, rock guy, but Obama was on his podcast called WTF Pod. Obama, like, they closed down his block in California. Secret Service was there, and Obama went to his fucking garage and sat down and talked to him. It's a really wild conversation because it's the first time that any, political figure of that level has been on just like a comedian who tells dick jokes podcasts. And, it's kind of just like, it brings you some sort of like, intimacy to it. Yeah. I don't know. It was just wild. It's definitely worth a listen. It's not too long, and it was a few years ago, but it was definitely interesting.
I can't believe I missed that. You said that the guy's name is Mark Maron?
Yeah, MarcMaron, WTF Pod. But so Mark Maron is a comedian, but interviews like everyone, like the who's who of everyone. I'm talking everyone from, random comedians like, whoever, you name it, he does it. A lot of celebrities. Michelle Pfeiffer's been on there, people like that, all the way to like, common nowadays Theo Vaughn type people. But he pretty much touches on everything. Actors, Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio. So he gets to all these different levels. But
that's awesome.
I'm pumped about our conversation. I'm very appreciative of you coming over and bringing me some beer to drink with you. And I respect what you do a lot and what Trace does a lot, and I'm happy to know you and be able to learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. You have an awesome little setup here. I'm happy to be a guest and to just continue following, because I think that as this continues, your consistency and your ability to listen and get stories out of folks is really special. So keep it up. Appreciate
that. Take a second and promote all your avenues that you're involved with.
Oh yeah, it's just Trace Brewing. Just laughing at my dog. She just woke up. Trace Brewing is just TRACE Brewing on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. What's up, Bubby? Little yawn. And then I'm Aadam Soorma. It's just ASOORMA on Instagram and Twitter. But Chad, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everyone else that's listening, appreciate it as usual. Each and every week, we're back with another great guest, and I appreciate you listening. So call you right back.